580 Sports Talk coming to you on a Victory Tuesday. That is right. KU, K-State, both taking care of schools in Missouri. But not great news here about an hour ago involving our favorite tight end and yours, Travis Kelce. We will get to all of that coming up here on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Jake LeBon, Brendan Orzinski, Dan Lucero with you on this Tuesday. We got the Chiefs and the Lions in action. And Travis Kelce is TBD. That is correct. Not ideal. Not ideal. We got so much to get to. Matt Verderame joins us coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk KU. We'll talk K-State. We'll talk Chiefs, Big 12. So much to get to. Michael Swain will join us. Andy Reid will not, because he talked for a minute and a half in his press conference today because he's upset. One, that two of the three best players on his team might not be playing tomorrow or on Thursday. Not a great situation for the Kansas City Chiefs, so we'll have to wait and see. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Go to YouTube as well. Search 580 Sports Talk. But the big news is that Travis Kelce has a hyperextended knee. It happened today in the red zone period right before practice was ending. According to Sky Moore, he walked off under his own power, but a hyperextension is what Andy Reid called it. They're going to go in for an MRI, and we'll find out tomorrow for the injury report that has to be released before the season opener. That is not great news for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if anybody tells you right now that he is out, or he's going to play, or he'll tough it out, or he's done for a while, who knows? Because the hyperextension of a knee can go from 1 day, 2 days, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, surgery, 6 weeks. Like, you have no idea. A hyperextension can just be a quick little tweak and you're totally fine. He could be out for the game Thursday and then be back for the second game coming up in 10 days from now, essentially. You have no idea. So everyone is just going to be waiting for the results to come out on Wednesday, or if a national reporter gets the news, then we'll find out. But this is a not a great situation if you are the Kansas City Chiefs right now, considering if he doesn't play, that means you don't have your best player, non-Patrick Mahomes, on offense, and you don't have your best player on defense because Chris Jones is still not reported. He's not playing on Thursday. We don't even know if he's going to be playing in the second game of the year coming up. But this all of a sudden is not the greatest situation heading into opening day coming up tomorrow.
You thinking like 24-point win instead of 28 then?
Are these the worst the vibes have been in the Patrick Mahomes era? And you still feel like, I mean, they're 6-point favorites at home on opening night. They're
5.5.
Down to 5.5.
Is it down again?
Yeah, give me an alternate spread. They are going to wipe the floor with the Lions on Thursday. You are going. I will call my shot. I will call my shot right now. You are going to see the single best game plan of the Andy Reid Chiefs era this week. You're going to see it.
They always I have said this, and you guys know this. I have always said that the Chiefs in week ones are almost unbeatable. They're 8-0 in their last 8 season openers, and their offense production is around 34 points a game. Now, that is with Travis Kelce.
Sure.
That is with an experienced wide receiving group, or with Tyreek Hill. But this will be the first game that Patrick Mahomes will not play. Again, he still can play. I'm going to point this out. Have to wait and see. I mean, he did walk under his own power. That's a good sign, right? This would be the first game, if he does not play, that Patrick Mahomes did not play a game with Travis Kelce.
Yeah, hasn't missed a game in a decade. And it's hard to think about what the offense would look like without him because we haven't seen it. We don't know what it looks like without Travis Kelce. But I think on the flip side, Brendan's got a point, got a good point, because the Chiefs always come out for week one as with Andy Reid as their head coach. Like, remember the nuke they dropped on Belichick in week one? What was that? Was
17. It was the last Alex
It was the
season.
last.
Kareem Hunt's first game.
Yes, I was trying to remember if it was the last Alex Smith year or the penultimate Alex Smith year. But yeah, like, remember that? And that was on Bill Belichick's forehead.
Mm-hmm.
They put that
in Foxborough.
Yes, on the road. So there will be something special. We will see, I think, even if Travis Kelce is unable to go, we will see a Chiefs offense with some wrinkles and with some execution that's going to allow them to put a lot of points on the board. I still have confidence in that.
You can't rest on your laurels when you don't have your best pass catchers as an offensive play caller. And you'll be shocked to know this is the first thing that popped into my mind. You remember when Devontae Adams missed a couple games for the Packers? Would have been 2 seasons ago.
No.
And well, he did. And there was the Packers aren't going to be good now because Aaron Rodgers has been propped up and Matt LaFleur has been propped up by the best receiver in the NFL, which is true. He was the best receiver in the NFL. The Packers in the last 8 games Devontae Adams missed as a Packer, 7-1. The best games of Matt LaFleur's coaching career were without Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers because you had scrubs. You had a worse wide receiver core than the Chiefs have right now. And it was, okay, well, we've got to get creative because you can't just say, well, everyone's covered and throw it to 17 because he's going to be open. You can't make that happen. You can't do that. So you come out with more creative plans. You come out with things that involve more misdirection, more creative route concepts.
I agree with that. Can you do that the day before a game?
Yes.
You haven't practiced any of that. Like, that's the thing. Like, I agree with you. I do agree with you. And we know, hey, guess what? When they didn't have any wide receivers in the AFC title game, MVS went for like $130 and they beat the Bengals, right? But they still had Travis Kelce. But we always point out, hey, with limited wide receivers, Patrick Mahomes is still doing work. I agree. I still think this offense is going to work because the O-line is going to be very good. You still have Mahomes, and I think the receivers as a collective unit are better than what people are giving them credit for.
I agree.
Travis Kelce, though, does make the receivers better than what they are. If this happened a week from now, I could fully buy in to the game plan is going to be this. The game plan is going to be, so much better. They can do things.
Mm-hmm.
They're done practicing. Like, this happened at the end of practice today. They're not practicing tomorrow. It's just walk through meetings, gear up, ready to go. That's the only thing. Like, I am not like telling you're completely wrong. I'm saying this makes it tougher to put in maybe a different game plan or practicing that game plan without Travis Kelce.
The thing about Kelce that makes him so great, that elevates him above any other tight end, that gives him that connection with Patrick Mahomes is not, I don't want to say it's nothing physical, but a lot of it is mental, right? A lot of it is that knowing where to be, where to go, finding that space in the defense. That's what you lose if he can't play, if he's not on the field. You lose the guy who manages to get to exactly the right spot and get into Patrick Mahomes' field of vision when it feels like things are breaking down completely on a given play. You lose that stuff if he can't go.
And you lose he's the comfort blanket. He's the comfort food. He's I remember the best way I can describe Travis Kelce is when Mahomes went down against Jacksonville, right? Chad Henne came in. That drive, that 94-yard drive or whatever, 91-yard drive that he did, like 7 passes went to Travis Kelce. It's like, oh, hey, Trav, run an 8-yard hook route and I'm going to throw it to you. It's almost always there. So we all agree that the offense is still going to be good. It just kind of depends on a few different factors. Let me ask you this. Let's say he's not going to be 100%. Let's say he's 60%. He says to Andy Reid, he does the full-on Mahomes, I'm playing. I don't care. Do you risk it? Do you risk playing Travis Kelce week 1 if he's 60 or 70% and say, hey, I can gut it out?
It depends on what the MRI says.
You know?
Like if it's if there's some legitimate long-term risk to the structural integrity of the knee, or if this is just a pain tolerance issue. Because if it's a pain tolerance issue, he's going to play.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's easy. That's an easy question.
I was going to say, so what is the risk in this? Is it a risk of making it worse? Because then I think there's a legit question. Or is the risk he's just not as effective as normal? If it's the former, I can see being more cautious. Maybe you go with a snap count. Maybe you don't play him at all. If it's just maybe he won't be as effective, he's going to play. And honestly, he'll probably play a nearly full accompaniment of snaps.
Yeah, and that's the hope, right? Is that what we have is no, like structural damage. We don't have a sprain or because sprains are tears. If people don't know that, you should. Like if they describe something as being sprained, that means something in there is torn. It's just not like torn all the way through, but you got a tear in there. So if you're dealing with something like that, if we're dealing with a sprain, then that is going to limit his effectiveness. It's more than just a pain tolerance issue. And you're going to have to, if you play him at all, and look, Kelsey's not going to beg out. So you either got to sit him or you're going to have him limited. You're going to have him on a pitch count. You're going to have him maybe only out there on third downs, or you're not going to have him in there on running downs or situations like that. But if it's strictly pain tolerance, like what can you grit your teeth and play through? He'll play every snap he would normally play. So that's why it comes down to the MRI. Like I know we're talking in hypotheticals here because nobody knows the answer.
Yeah.
But I still lean pretty strongly in the direction of unless something's really, really wrong with the knee, like long-term wrong, he can be out there for week 1.
The reason I bring that, you guys know this more than anyone, the regular season is a means to an end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce had even said that at one point in time where he goes, the regular season, you hate losing. That's the competitiveness in him and all of that. And we know he's tougher than nails. Remember, he almost missed the championship game because of his back locked up the night before.
Yeah. Remember that whole thing? Are we going to have Kelce?
Right?
Yeah.
This is a little bit different because it's, the back tightening up is all muscles. This is not muscles. This is ligaments. These, are rubber bands in your knee and everything like that. That's why when we get to Tony here in a little bit, looks like it airs Tony. Andy Reid said,
sounds like he'll be good to go.
He's good to go. Like, I guess I'm not. I'd rather be cautious because I just know that this is a means to an end, and if we all think that the Chiefs are still going to put up 30 points against the Lions. Now, the Lions have a new revamped defense. They brought in a bunch of people, and Brendan's a Packer fan, and he's a biased guy. I have to understand. It's like me talking negative about the Raiders and all that kind of stuff. You got a bias, Brendan. You're an owner of the Packers. You hate the Lions. But
yeah,
they did.
I also just don't think adding a strong safety takes you from a bottom 5 defense to a not bottom 5 deep. Like, C.J. Gardner-Johnson's a really good player. Dan's going to play defensive end opposite Aiden Hutchinson. So, like,
that's
good luck.
To me. Yeah. I better do some stretching.
You and Charles Harris are the next 2 best pass
better get
the
some
Lions
deep
have.
knee bends in between now and Thursday.
You went knee bend.
I'm going to offer a somewhat different perspective on how you game plan for this game if Travis Kelce can't go. And hopefully he can. If he's even out there half of as much as he normally is, Chiefs are going to be fine. They'll make it work. I think not having Kelce out there makes this more difficult for the coaching staff and your play caller, Andy Reid, than it actually does for the players. And the reason, and that includes Mahomes. And the reason why, and we talk about this all the time, how often has Mitch Holthus told us how difficult training camp is? Because not only is it a physical thing, and it's just the grueling summer heat in St. Joe and these long practices, but it's a difficult mental thing, especially for young guys, because young receivers in this offense have to learn everything. Sky Moore has to know what the slot jobs are, what the boundary left and boundary right jobs are. He has to know the blocking scheme. He has to know what Mahomes is doing, and he needs to be able to read the defense. Throw in the tight ends, too. He's got to know what Kelce is doing in any given play. The Chiefs expect all of their offensive pieces to know every element of every single play call. They expect these guys to be able to run the full route tree, or even if you're not going to run it yourself, like MVS, you got to know how they all mesh together in any given concept out of any given formation. So all these receivers already know, if it's, hey, we've got to change this week. You're going to be doing this differently. You're going to be doing this differently. These guys already know that. They already know how to do that. They already know how to make that happen, what their roles are going to have to be. So to me, the rest of the receivers, they're not going to have a whole lot change, except maybe where they're lining up.
The one thing that they will, under the impression that Kelsey does not play, this is something that it makes the job for the secondary and the wide receivers completely different, though, in this aspect. If there's no Travis Kelsey, they don't have to worry about double teaming anybody. So then it is simply man-to-man. They're going to maybe blitz more, or what you do is you play the most basic protect, bend, but don't break, which is man-free defense, because then it comes down to, the plays are all the same. It's, can you beat that guy in front of you? That was the one thing this offseason that a lot of the national media was talking about. Will they see a lot more man-to-man? Will they see that? Because they don't know if these Chiefs wide receivers can get separation. That was the key word this year for the Chiefs wide receivers. Can they get separation from man-to-man? You can't do a lot of man-to-man when you got Travis Kelsey out there because you got to double team him. And that leaves you with a lot more openings for other teams. There's no help elsewhere. Now you don't have to double team Travis Kelsey. Noah Gray could be there. I'm under the assumption that, let's say, he doesn't play. Okay.
Sure.
He very well could. This means that we very well can find a much better barometer, measuring stick for these wide receivers in this game on how much because that's what I would do. If I were the defense and I'm, kneecaps Campbell, I play man defense and I put my two safeties back there and say, go get the ball. Go to the ball, because we don't have to worry about 87 if he's not playing. That does make it different.
Well, you are in luck then, because no team in the NFL ran more man coverage snaps last year than the Detroit Lions. So Kelsey or not, okay, if you want to look at it from the pessimistic side of things, this was actually the exact wrong matchup to not have Kelsey, because they play so much man defense, and you would have ended up with more favorable matchups, or more favorable matchups, because of the fact that they're going to give you that many similar defensive looks.
Another impact I think could be interesting here. Nobody in the NFL last year ran more 13 personnel than the Chiefs. 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 tight ends. Only 3 tight ends on the 53-man roster, including Travis Kelsey. So if he can't go, you're down to just 2 tight ends. So how does that change maybe some of the looks you want to give in rushing situations? How does that change how you might have to tip your hand a little bit if you're going run heavy at some point? Changes some of the things that they can do in the run game, some of the things they can do in play action out of 13 personnel. Because you can't run 13 personnel if you've only got 2.
You know who we will probably see as the practice squad elevation?
The Bushman.
Matt Bushman.
He should have made the 53.
Well, I would have put him on the 53 too, but no, I
Yeah.
would be shocked if we don't see him get elevated on Thursday. Because at the very least, you can put him out there to run some of that 13 personnel.
Yeah, but gosh,
stuff.
at whose expense? I mean, you're so settled with your 53-man roster going into week 1, and 2 days before something's going to detonate it. Like, what do you do? I mean, probably Cam Jones, but they really, really like him. There's a reason they went out of their way to keep a 6 linebacker.
And they could put Travis Kelsey on IR if they think he's going to miss 3 weeks. I mean, they really could. There's a lot of things that can happen over the next 48 hours or 24 hours, depending upon what the MR. Now, Sky Moore did say that they saw him walk off under his own power, and that it didn't look as bad as maybe a lot of players thought. So interesting there. We'll get a quick timeout. What's the latest on Chris Jones? We'll get to that. Matt Verderame will join us to talk a little more Chiefs and NFL Week 1. We'll get to more of the college scene in the 3 o'clock hour.
What a freaking week. It was awesome.
Yeah.
All weekend.
I think college football needs to change something for this first weekend. I'm going to get to that coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. Yes. Not week 0, but week 1. I'm gonna get to it.
Okay.
But I do want to get to a little bit, and we're going to talk with Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated, here in just a few minutes. But all right, latest on Chris Jones. All right, there's a lot to real quick break down here in the short amount of time we got here. Considering the source, Mike Florio put out a post that said that Chris Jones is not wanting Aaron Donald money, and that the Chiefs are offering like $24 million.
Just slightly over what Quinnen Williams got.
Yeah, 24.7.
Yes.
I think.
Now, we know who gave him that info, and that is the Katz brothers. That's Chris Jones' agent. This is to get everybody in the general public to see that and go, why are the Chiefs being so cheap? Why are they being so cheap? What's the deal? So take that with a giant grain of salt that we don't know what the Chiefs are offering right now. We have no clue, because that could be completely fabricated. Mike Florio could be saying that, and it could be right. Hey, the Katz brothers told him this, but that might not necessarily be the right number. I'll say this. If it is true, okay, let's just go with the if it is true theory. I think the Chiefs are being cheap, but I don't think the Chiefs are going to legitimately offer $24 million and think that would work. Like, I don't think they legitimately think that would actually work. That's why I don't believe that this is the number. Forget about the who it's from and the agents and the media members. If they're not going to offer 24, they know that that's not going to work. That's why I think this is ridiculous.
Well, the counterpoint is that they're offering 24 knowing it probably wouldn't work and they don't care. Which, for what it's worth, I doubt. I don't think that's the case, but
it's a lot of ground to cover as far as the bridge between what Aaron Donald has and what Quinnen Williams is making. Like, that's $7 million a year. That's not a pretty big bridge.
Yes.
And I think that has ended up creating some problems. I think if there was a little smaller bridge, let's say Quinnen Williams would come in at like 26 million, and then there's less room between that and 31, and then you probably find a common ground. I think it was Nick Wright who was saying that two teams might be $9.5 million apart at this point, just in terms of the total value of what's being asked for. I mean, that's such a small amount, relatively speaking.
Especially when you've already lost $2 million in fines.
It feels like both sides should be able then to get to the table and get something done. But I just feel like this is a staring match at this point. I'm sure I'm not the first one to use that turn of phrase, but that's what it feels like, a staring contest. And Chris Jones is bound to determine not to blink first.
I think that the Chiefs, Chris Jones is the one losing out in this situation, because he's losing out on money that he might not get back. Like that's what I am.
In a literal sense, he can't get it back.
No, he is going to miss this. He's not going to get paid coming up on Thursday. He cannot. He didn't report on Tuesday, and they put him on the report list. I mean, now we're talking that it's $1 million there. But if you're Chris Jones, you can't come back now. Like then you lost all your threat, right? I think Chris Jones called the Chiefs bluff, but the Chiefs said, nope, we'll ride without you, man. Like, that's the thing. I wonder if Chris Jones thought, you know what? I am different. If the Chiefs know I'm different, they'll cave. And the Chiefs will never cave.
Yeah,
like, they will never cave.
It's an interesting gamble from the Jones perspective, if that's indeed what happened, because when have they ever caved?
They've never caved.
Yeah.
Never have they done that.
Sure didn't with Orlando Brown Jr. Chris Jones was in the room for that. He was in the locker room. He saw how that went down, and he sees what uniform Orlando Brown Jr. is wearing, and it's not a Chiefs uniform.
Same thing, Tyreek Hill. There's only one guy there that can dictate whatever he wants, and that's Patrick Mahomes.
And that in turn probably dictates how the Chiefs are going to do business for as long as he's there, and as long as this regime is in charge. And it is, are you number 15? Check yes or no. It's got a flow chart. If you checked yes, you can have whatever you want. If you checked no, you get a number. And if you do not like it, then you can handle the rest of your contract however you want, but we are not going to budge on that. And I can understand if you don't think that's the right way to do it. I think it's totally fair to be critical of that, but that's how they operate. And at this point, if you're the Chiefs, if you don't completely tank defensively over the next 3 weeks, what is your incentive to change? Because, let's say they go out this week and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs each run for 100 yards, and Jared Goff gets, pressured 3 times and throws for 350. You're like, well, actually, this is a disaster. Okay, now we have to increase the payout, or we give them a raise for this year and renegotiate at the end of the season. Whatever, we got to figure it out somehow.
Yep.
If that doesn't happen, I don't know when this ends. I really don't. Well, it ends when Jones has to report to get his year of
the other thing too.
service.
You got to remember this is whenever he does report and they take him off of it, the Chiefs have to move money around.
Yeah,
because the only reason they signed a practice squad and have all that money is because his cap number doesn't count. Now, if he signs a new deal, it'll be much lower. They'll lower the cap number and all that kind of stuff. But something has to go down, whether that's Mahomes or Kelsey or Tooney or somebody.
And I'm sure they already know what that's going to be.
They can, but that'll be something to keep in mind there. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated on all things NFL week. Wine and Spirits hotline to talk with our NFL insider. He is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. All right, Matt, an hour and a half ago, Chiefs Kingdom got flipped upside down with the news of Travis Kelce Break it down. How does this impact it? What do you feel could happen when it comes to this monster news 2 days before the game?
Yeah, Chiefs aren't having a great week, and it's Tuesday, so there's that. Look, it's hard to say with a hyperextension because that is one of those injuries that has about as big of a range of outcomes as you can possibly ask for. I mean, he could play on Thursday. Like the Chiefs saying afterwards, Andy Reid saying afterwards, well, we'll see how he does. That's real. I mean, they could do the MRI, and it could be clean, and maybe they slap like a sleeve on his knee and he plays. I mean, that's absolutely within reason. It's also within reason that he could have torn ligaments, and if he did, he's out for the season. That's why they're doing an MRI, not just for the ligaments, but to look at any kind of swelling or any kind of straining. So it's scary. If you're the Chiefs, look, if you lose Kelsey for a game or even a month, you'll survive. They have so many talented players. They won't be as good, but they'll survive it. You lose them for the year, it's hard to make the case that that's a Super Bowl caliber offense, even with Mahomes in that offensive line.
You mentioned they can survive a little bit without him. Why should, maybe you be cautious and you say, hey, we'll wait 10 days and that way he gets, don't rush it back if you think you can beat the Lions without him. How do you handle that? Even if it's pain tolerance, he's going to play. We know how tough he is, but is it worth it to try to tough it out week number 1?
I think it depends, and I'm no medical expert, but if it's one of these things where it's like, look, you can't, like you're not at any bigger of an injury risk. If you play, then you can play. If it's one of these things where it's like, look, man, you're 90%, you're 80%, you could play, but you're risking some of the ligaments, you're risking being out for the year. Then I think it's crazy for him to play. I mean, whether or not you think they'll win or lose with or without him against Detroit, it doesn't even matter. Like, you just don't. It's like when we all talked earlier this summer about Burrow and his calf. If he's not 100%, you just don't play him. The Chiefs' season is not going to be won on Thursday night. Could be lost. It's not going to be won. So I think if you're Kansas City, if he can't go or you don't think that it's smart to have him go out there, then look, you go out there and you throw the ball around to all these other receivers that you have. You run the ball with Pacheco and McKinnon, and you try to win a different way. I mean, they're talented enough to do it. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, this line has been 6.5 forever. Jones not playing didn't even budge the line. Kelsey's moved it down a half point. Like, it's not like the Chiefs now are looking to be in a touchdown underdog in this game. So I think you have to be smart. If he can play, great. If he can't, then you just sit him and you move on. You play the game without him.
Let's go to Chris Jones. He's not going to play because he's not there. Right. There was a report over the weekend that said that Jones doesn't want Aaron Donald money. What do you make of the Chris Jones holdout situation right now?
It's a circus. It's gotten to the point where it's a circus. And, the reporting has really been all over the place because it depends on how you view a contract. Like, every time I've ever seen somebody get an extension, it's always viewed by their new money. Like when Mahomes got a 10-year, $450 million extension, nobody was like, well, it's actually $40 million because of the last 2 years of the rookie deal. It was, no, he's $45 million a year because that's the new contract. It just won't kick in for a couple of years. The same thing with Hurts this year getting his deal. The problem is that the Chiefs are essentially offering 2 years and $54.5 million in new money. And according to reports, Jones and his agents, the Katz brothers, want 3 years and $84 million in a ripped up brand new contract. I'm going to tell you right now, they're not going to rip up this contract. That's not happening. Like, there is no world that they're doing that, because if they do it for him, they're going to do it. They're going to be under pressure to do it for everybody. They didn't rip up Kelsey's deal. They didn't rip up Mahomes' deal. They're not ripping up the last year of Chris Jones' contract, which then would mean to get the 3 years and $84 million, they'd have to pay him $32.25 million per year, which is almost $1 million more than what Donald makes per year, and that's not going to happen either. So I think at some point, Jones is just going to come in and he's either going to sign the deal that's in front of him. Maybe it's a little bit of a sweetened deal, but not by much, or he's going to come in and he's going to play out the last year of his current contract. I do not think the Chiefs are moving. I would be very surprised if all of a sudden Kansas City caved. I do not expect that.
Do you think the Katz brothers handled this negotiation well?
No, I don't. And the reason is not because they're trying to get to 384. Like that's fine. That's their job. And I think you have to understand that even if you're a fan of the team, you're not thrilled with the fact he's not there. What I don't think was handled well is to ask the Chiefs to rip it up. And the only reason that's happening, by the way, is because Donald's contract got ripped up with the Rams. And that is literally the only time I can ever remember a player having his contract ripped up since I've covered the NFL. And it was because Donald is basically the equivalent to Mahomes of the Rams, and he was threatening to retire. So it was a very unique circumstance, and the Rams did it, and the Chiefs did not going to do it. So I think, first of all, that's an ask that's just not going to happen. Number two, I don't get on anybody for him holding out throughout the summer because, hey, look, if he's willing to pay the fine, okay, put some pressure on the team. What I don't get with this is why don't you just hold in, not pay the fines, put pressure on the team because you're there every single day and every camera can see you, and then come to the season, you're not getting fined for being inactive on game days and being on this do not report list. If he doesn't show up every game, he's losing more than $1 million. And not only is he losing that money, he's also making next year's tag number lesser and lesser and lesser every time. So if you're the Chiefs, you have no reason to negotiate because you know that every game that he misses, his numbers are going to keep going down. I just think it's a miscalculation. I think they overshot the market a little bit, and now they're trying to dig in, and I just don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think the Chiefs are going to move.
Matt Verderame is our guest. He covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated and SI.com. You can find him on Twitter, where his handle is at Matt Verderame. Normally joins us on Mondays on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, but due to the off day yesterday, he's kind enough to join us on Tuesday this week. Matt, let's get to a couple of other players who are either holding out or are dealing with some major contract issues going into week one. And I'll start with Brian Burns of the Carolina Panthers. Jog my memory if I forgot something, but it sort of feels like this came out of nowhere that he is just not showing up at practice this week as they get ready for week one. I don't know that he's not going to play this week, but do you remember hearing anything about Brian Burns being discontent with the end of his rookie deal?
No, I mean, it's been kind of bubbling under the surface. You talk to people around the league. I think there's been a thought that, hey, look, it's time for me to get paid. And I think there was also maybe a thought that, well, if Bosa gets paid, then it'll help him. Not that he's going to usurp Bosa. He's not going to. But, might kind of set the market a little bit higher, and so maybe he can come in a little bit at a bigger number. I don't think he's going to miss the game this weekend. I don't expect him to against the Falcons. It's a weird thing, though, because if you're the Panthers, you're in a weird spot with this because you turned down multiple, big-time picks from the Rams, according to a million different reports last year. Those are pretty high picks. It's pretty valuable picks. And you're not going to take those picks, but then you're not going to pay them. You're kind of compelled to at that point. I mean, I think that's where it becomes difficult. Look, there's a reason right now in the NFL you're seeing these log jams. I mean, you're seeing, and it's not just these pass rushers. Burrow hasn't gotten paid. Justin Jefferson hasn't yet signed. The markets are exploding because the cap's soaring with all this new money coming in with TV and gambling. But then on top of that, you have these teams that are trying to kind of go incrementally with the market. And these players are saying, no, hey, look, I'm Chris Jones. I'm Nick Bosa. I'm Justin Jefferson. I'm Joe Burrow. You're going to go more than incrementally here. And so you're just having this push-pull. Eventually all these deals, I would expect, at some juncture, will get done. But they're taking a lot longer than I think most people expected.
Mike Evans, who I think is still one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL. It's a sure thing. Death taxes and Mike Evans is going to get you 1,000 yards through the air every season. But he has given the Buccaneers a deadline that I am not going to negotiate an extension beyond September 9th, which, as you know, is just 4 days away. It is right before the start of the season coming up this weekend. Do you think a deal is going to get done for Mike Evans? And alternately, do you think this is the last year he'll be playing in Tampa?
Yeah, Evans is fantastic. I don't think people realize he's never not had a 1,000.
He's a stud.
Which is incredible. And you think about, other than the fact that he played at Brady for a few years, he has been with nobody and racked up 1,000 yards after 1,000 yards. It's a weird spot for Tampa, as I just said with Carolina, with Burns, but for a different reason. Look, the Panthers are this young ascending team. The Buccaneers are not. And Evans is on the other side of 30, and you just wonder here if you're Tampa, does it not make the most sense to just trade him? I mean, I get it. You know, the NFL, you can turn it around really quickly. I don't know if the Bucs are turning this thing around quick enough here where Evans is going to go and win another Super Bowl in Tampa. So I think if you're the Buccaneers, if you can get 4 or 5 games out of him where he looks really good this year before the deadline, I'd look to move him. I would look to try to trade him, maybe get a bidding war going. Now, the hard part is, as always, whoever trades for him is going to have to give up a premium pick, assuming he does get dealt. And you're going to have to give up a ton of money. And he's going to have all the leverage in the world. Because if you give up a late first or a second-round pick for Mike Evans, like, you're giving up 25 a year. You're just going to. Are you willing to do that for a guy who is extremely productive, but is also getting older? That's the hard part of this. So, look, I don't blame Tampa for not signing him to a big contract because they may be looking at this thing going, we're kind of rebuilding. I mean, Brady's gone, and it's kind of time to look toward the future. I think it makes the most sense to trade him at some point here.
Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Usually does so on Monday. Gracious enough to join us on this Tuesday. And Matt, there are football games this weekend, ones that count. It starts Thursday night, and then we've got Sunday and Monday, and it is week 1. It is here. It is upon us. So with that in mind, as you look ahead to the week 1 schedule, what games are the most intriguing to you as far as games where we might learn a little something, games where you're just excited to see what a team might look like on the field under a new coach with some new personnel? What games are circled on your viewing schedule or circled on your week 1 slate?
I think the Jets and the Bills on Monday night have to be. I mean, that game, whoever loses that game, we're at DEFCON like -98, and we're 1 game into the season, right? Like, I'm from that area of the country. If the Jets lose that game, I can't express to anybody who's not familiar with that area, like, what talk radio is going to be like the next morning. Okay. It's going to be unbelievable. And if the Bills lose and you get like a cryptic tweet from Stephon Diggs at 3 a.m., well, we've got all the content we need for Tuesday. I think that's a really interesting game. I'll give you one that's, I think, a little under the radar is Miami and the Chargers. Like, those are 2 teams that there's a huge discrepancy in opinion. Like, some people think they're Super Bowl teams. Other people don't think they're going to make the playoffs. That's a really interesting game. It's an odd thing to say about a week 1 game, but that could be a really, really important game down the stretch. I mean, whether somebody has a tiebreaker or whatnot. And on the NFC side, I'm kind of in a curious way about the Packers-Bears game. Like, I think the Packers are better than people think they are, and I don't think the Bears are as good as people think they are, but we're going to find out. I mean, if the Bears win that game, all of a sudden, you're like, okay, hey, Chicago's here a little bit. If they lose, it's going to get the same old Bears. So there's a lot of interesting games. Bengals, Browns, another one, but I think those are some of the ones I'll be looking at closely.
What is the hottest take you are prepared to stand by entering this 2023 season?
Oh, God. The hottest take I'm prepared to stand. The Raiders are one of the 3 worst teams in football. I don't see how they're like. I don't see how that team's going to win more than, like, I don't know, 5 games, and I don't think they're going to win that many games. But I don't know how hot of a take that is. Trying to think of other ones I have. I mean, look, I'm picking Dallas to go to the Super Bowl, which I feel like just by nature they're probably going to end up winning like 9 games and just, like, clock manage themselves out of 4 wins. So that scares me. I'm picking Seattle to win the division. I think Seattle is going to win the NFC West. You know what? I don't know how hot this is. I think Tennessee is going to be like in the playoff hunt come the last 2 weeks of the year. I know people just automatically are like, they stink. They're going to win 5 games. That team, they're like in the horror movie when the hand comes up and like you just think like and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's Tennessee again. And they're 7-6 and their second leading receiver is a guy you've never heard of, but they just keep winning games because they're really well coached. But I do think at the end, man, this year to me, in a league of parity, I look at the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Eagles. Like, those teams are just, to me, so much better than most of these other teams. I think in the end, those teams are going to be right where everybody expects.
Do you have a team that should be on upset alert where you say, oh, look out, San Francisco, Pittsburgh can pop you there at home at, whatever name stadium they have now? Who should be on upset alert?
Actually, yeah. I think Pittsburgh has a very good chance to win that game. So I'll give you one, though, that just mostly because of the history between the two teams is that Bengals-Browns game. The Browns just own Cincinnati when they play them in Cleveland. I don't know why, but Burrow's had just a nightmare of a time with Cleveland. For whatever the reason, that's always been an issue. And part of it, too, I'm sure, is, look, you're familiar with each other because you see each other in the division all the time. But I think those are a couple games. And then I don't know that it's upset alert because Denver's favored over the team I think is going to be atrocious in the Raiders. But, you want to talk about a game I'm kind of morbidly excited for? It's Denver and the Raiders, where anything's possible in that game. Anything. If you told me that the Broncos beat them 41-3, I'd believe it. If you told me that Wilson throws 5 picks in 5 possessions and is benched by halftime, I'd believe it. Anything, it's all on the table. So, but yeah, I think the Steelers of all of them, I actually like them against the Niners.
All righty, last thing. Who do you have in your Super Bowl, your champion, and who's the MVP this year?
I'd like to know what Travis Kelce's injury extent is, but I mean, as we sit here, I picked the Chiefs over Dallas. I had never picked repeat champions because it's just so hard. It hasn't happened for 20 years, but I just think if they're healthy and they're right, they're the best team in football. I don't think anybody's beaten them on most days. So I'll take those. So the MVP of the league, I actually think Burrow. I think it's kind of his time. I can see him being the MVP. It's just so hard, again, to win back-to-back MVPs. It does happen, but it's hard. So I'll go for Burrow as MVP, Chiefs over Cowboys in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl MVP. Let's go now. Chris Jones, because that would just be fitting the way this whole thing has started.
Matt, we appreciate the time. And if for some reason Kelce is out long term, you can come back next week and you can change your Super Bowl pick since it happened before the day. We'll give you a mulligan on that one. Matt, we appreciate the time, my friend.
Hey, take it easy.
Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline.
The Cowboys pick is interesting.
Yeah.
I think they will be a playoff team or lingering with being a playoff team. But I don't think they have enough top-end pieces to be that good. But top-end pieces offensively to be that good.
I've done the full 360 on Dak Prescott from I just don't think he's good enough to win games that matter to actually Dak is super underrated to doesn't matter if he's underrated. He can't win the games that matter. I've done the full 360. We've come completely full circle on Dak Prescott.
I have not. I think Dak Prescott is a little bit more explosive Alex Smith. Thus, I don't think they'll ever go to a Super Bowl with him.
I think he's better than Alex Smith,
Yeah.
but I mean, we've talked about this with Herbert, right? Like at some point you've got to win. Dak has been a starter since 2016.
Yeah, been there a while.
Yeah.
They won one playoff game, 2,
Maybe 2.
never been out of the wild card round. Well,
The divisional round.
Yeah.
They've been there.
Divisional round?
They've been there twice.
Yeah. Coming up, we will get to plenty of college football. KU, K-State. We'll get to all that coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. Number 2, 580 Sports Talk on the air. Thank you so much for joining us. Jake Levon along with Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero with you as well. It is a Victory Tuesday because both KU, K-State, taking care of state and directional. I guess state because Southeast Missouri State taking care of Missouri State schools, if you will.
I call them both Bachman-Turner Overdrive because they were taking care of business this weekend.
We can do that as well. We got plenty to get to. We will recap the weekend. Random Question Tuesday. Maybe talk about, like 80s rock bands apparently as well here on this 3 o'clock hour.
Name another Bachman-Turner Overdrive song.
No.
Whatever one they were doing when Homer Simpson yelled at him to play Taking Care of Business.
Can I offer you Ain't Seen Nothing Yet?
Yeah, that's the other
Roll
one.
On Down the Highway. I know that one.
Baby.
That's all I got for you.
All right.
Get to the working overtime part.
Let us know your thoughts on our YouTube page. Go to 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. It's easy to get there. Head to our text line as well, 785-272-9429.
What's your bit about 38 Special?
38 Special is terrific.
Don't you have some joke about there are no 38 Special? Anytime we talk about old rock bands, we're like, there are no 38 Special.
That's only one of the few.
When I was on vacation this summer, I saw an ad for some like Rib Fest thing in Hilton that the main event this fall was going to be a 38 Special concert. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna tell Jake about this. He's got to make the trip down,
38
see his
Special.
boys.
Fantastic.
Do you think they hold on loosely for the encore?
I think they play it to open and to close the show.
No, they
you
don't.
You got to play it
They're
twice.
they're not a double up.
They're like the Scorpions.
Remix in the middle of it.
They're not
some new verses.
Yeah, the reprise.
They're not like, the Big and Rich of the world where they got like 2 songs and so they have to play. By the way, Big and Rich, one of the worst concerts I've ever seen. I mean, they played like 2 of their own songs and it just turned into karaoke night is what it was with John Rich.
I have interviewed John Rich, not in person, but over the phone. And I have tried his barbecue sauce. Mid.
I
regret to say that it is mid.
But yeah, we can bring back some Bachman-Turner Overdrive because the state schools were taking care of business. I'm going to start first, though, with Cats. And Howard was good. Love that DJ Giddens was awesome. But my 2 questions I wonder about this K-State team after watching that game is RJ Garcia that dude? Because if he's that dude, K-State just got that much harder to stop.
Especially if Keegan Johnson's not 100%.
Yep. But if RJ Garcia is that dude, okay, that is a huge development for Kansas State. That's the first one. And the second one, and to me, this is more so about the opponent because it's more of a grouping. But is that K-State front 7 that good to cause that many negative plays? Like, to get that many tackles for loss and sacks in a game is difficult to do, regardless of opponent. But let's call a spade a spade. SEMO, isn't the Texas O-line. But if they are, and RJ Garcia is that dude, man, K-State coming, and they coming full throttle, all right? Because that was my 2 biggest questions was can they get it done up front? And does somebody at the wide receiver spot, not named Ben Sinnott, who is awesome, because we know they're going to run the ball. We know Howard is as big as a tank. I think Giddens is good. That didn't surprise me what he did. But, man, if they can throw it like that, look out, man. K-State's offense could be for real.
So I'll address both of those in the order in which the questions were received. Number one, I do think RJ Garcia is good. I don't think it was an accident that he came in for a lot of recognition last year. Chris Kleiman talked about him going into the season. It was just a numbers game. Like, he was wide receiver 4 on the depth chart, and Kansas State doesn't play 4 wide receivers all that often. When 1 is Malik Knowles and 2 is, the veteran Cade Warner, and 3 was Phillip Brooks, like, there just weren't a lot of snaps for RJ Garcia last year. When he got them, he made the most of it. Caught a touchdown pass in the Big 12 championship game.
That was a great
so
catch.
I don't think this is particularly a fluke. I think they have thought that RJ Garcia was capable of this, and with an increased workload, you're going to see him make an impact, make some plays, get open down the field for this Kansas State team. I do think he's good. I'll start there. Like, that dude, that remains to be seen. Like, to me, that dude is like first team all conference. I don't think he's that, but like, is he a weapon? Yes. Is he somebody who is going to make some big plays for Kansas State this year? Yes, I believe that to be true. The other thing about their defensive front seven, is it that good? Yeah, I think it is. That's the part of the defense I had the least number of questions about. The linebacker core is really deep. I think they've played a lot of football, a lot of experience up front. I think that we're going to see. I called out Nate Matlack last week. I said this is a guy I think last year was going to have a breakout year. Then he got hurt. Brendan Mott took his snaps and played really well. But now that Matlack's healthy, I think he's going to make an impact. He was super. He might have been their best lineman in that game. We saw Khalid Duke get a sack. I know it's an FCS team, but that was an FCS team that averaged well over 200 yards a game on the ground last year and had one of the best running backs in the country, like a preseason All-American at running back and a preseason All-American on their offensive line. Like, they got some players. And Kansas State did not let them run the football. Like, that's what they came to do. Kansas State didn't allow it. So I think that was an genuinely impressive showing for Kansas State's front seven. I think it's a sign of things to come, because those are good. They got a lot of depth at those spots and a lot of experience at those spots.
I think one important thing to note, too, is that, well, yes, you can say the front seven looked great, but it was SEMO. You want great teams to be great against inferior competition. Like, I don't think there was anything that could have made me feel like they're better than I thought up front, because I'm mostly with Dan. I think there are some personnel questions, especially if Sayamalo is trying to come back from injury, and he's obviously a huge part of this team.
And we didn't expect Sayamalo to play, and he played well.
Yeah.
He was impactful.
So outside of a potential injury concern there, I thought that I was more confident in the front seven than I am in the back four of that starting defense, just because of the turnover at the cornerback spots. So I don't think there was anything that would make me feel like, damn, this unit's even better than I thought. But I do think if they had gone out there and just been okay, I would have thought, dang, why are you guys getting pushed around by SEMO? Like, why are guys who are as talented as Khalid Duke, as talented as Isaac Sayamalo or Nate Matlack or Deuce Green or any of these guys, why are you getting pushed around by those players? That would have made me more concerned.
But that absolutely, firmly did not happen.
Right. So I'm very confident in that. And I want to see my good teams whoop up on bad teams. Well, not bad. I don't want to discredit SEMO. They're a good FCS team. But relative to they made the playoffs.
Yeah, won the OVC last year.
But relative to
winning the OVC, come on. That's not that difficult.
Only one team gets to do it.
Well, yeah,
Look,
anyway,
there
relative
have been,
to a Big 12 title contender.
There have been worse FCS teams that have come through Bill Snyder Family Stadium in recent memory.
Yes.
Some who have given K-State a harder time.
Remember that South Dakota game where K-State was down 2 scores?
2 years, and I know the COVID year was a tough year for K-State. It's a tough year for everyone.
Yeah.
They had their hands full with Southern Illinois, a not very good Salukis team that year. So no, I was very encouraged.
It's a great sign because they kicked snot out of them, you know. But did we learn anything? That's why, to me, I didn't learn anything outside of maybe RJ Garcia can be that guy. And now you mentioned Keegan Johnson. Chris Kleiman said TBD on Keegan Johnson.
That's tough.
That's not ideal. But that's why, like, Ben Sinnott is, I never would have thought I'd say this because he's a junior. I never thought Ben Sinnott was going to have a decision to make at the end of this year.
He's a game breaker.
He's a dude, man. Yep. He is a dude.
And Johnson caught the touchdown pass. Not Keegan Johnson, obviously. What was it? What's his first name? I'm going to get it wrong, and I don't want to get it wrong. The Ole Miss transfer.
Caught
the first touchdown on the deep ball.
Yes. I know the other Johnson. We're going to get to him in just a second.
Are you thinking of Jaden Jackson?
Jaden Jackson, yeah, that's can't even get his last name right. Yeah, Jaden Jackson caught the touchdown pass. Like that's a Power 5 transfer who's been with the program. I think he can help him at wide receiver too if they're missing Keegan Johnson long term. One other thing we got to talk about from this K-State game, Avery.
Yeah,
Johnson.
Avery Johnson. Right,
Holy,
let me ask
moly.
you this, and this was something that I've always wondered what they were going to do. Do you just play him because he's a weapon? Because and this is what I've been told about people who are follow K-State in the know, all that is he is electric running the football. And you saw, I mean, he's tiptoeing around people. There's like 9 dudes around him and he scored that touchdown. They had the same situation last year up to a point with Will Howard. Do you just play him every game because this year can be special, or do you play him in 3 more games and you keep his year of eligibility this year? I wonder how they're going to do that.
Texter from the 785 points out, we never make it through, referring to Kansas State, a whole season without needing the backup.
Yeah.
That kid can play, referring to Avery Johnson.
Yep.
I do think there's the ability to use him as a change of pace.
Yes.
And I think that the chance exists to get both him and Will Howard on the field for some stuff, because he is so electric running the football.
My stance on K-State is how I view quarterback rooms, like deep quarterback rooms for every program except KU. I don't want to see Avery Johnson in a single game that Will Howard is healthy for, unless it's garbage time. Like, play him against SEMO because you're up 35-0 when he was in the game, or 31-0 when he was in the game. I do not think it is a good idea generally to run 2 quarterback stuff, because I think it's an unnecessary risk. I think any sort of disruption to continuity and consistency is usually a net negative. I get the positives of him athletically. You want a Big 12 title with Will Howard and someone who probably, when it's all said and done, is just a worse version of Avery Johnson in Adrian Martinez. They're not all that similar, but really good runners. Adrian Martinez, not nearly as good of a thrower as we think Avery Johnson can be. Like, let Will Howard be the guy. That's how I feel. I view KU differently, because KU, generally speaking, needs all the quirks and misdirection and change-ups you can get. And Jason Bean is quite literally a track star. So I'm fine doing some goofy stuff with him. I am much more in the camp of it's Will Howard show. And I felt the same way last year.
I'm with you. I just want to know, do you wait? Like, I'm surprised they played him in this game. Like, you were cruising, and does that mean that he's going to be their backup all year?
100%.
It should be. Yeah.
I saw enough to think that if Will Howard happened to get hurt, that's who I want coming off the
field. Oh yeah. So, but in that situation, was this the look that they needed? And now Avery Johnson will only play if Will Howard gets hurt, because now we know he can do it, but we want to save him this year. You got 3 more games that he can play.
I'll jump in. I will say, if I was in control of the situation, I'm playing him in one of the next 2 games, either Troy or Mizzou. By the way, Missouri is going to keep playing Brady Cook. There is embarrassing blowout potential in Columbia in 2 weekends. Brady Cook was game managing against South Dakota. That is a nightmare waiting to happen for Missouri. But I would play Avery in one of these next 2 games, keep him as the health insurance / still potential redshirt for later in the year. And if you've still got eligibility with, 1 week to go in the regular season, then play him against Iowa State and play him in the bowl game. Did they pass the rule about a bowl game not counting for the redshirt rule? Or is that something that was tabled?
I have no idea.
I think that might have been tabled, but I think that was brought up.
But no, if Howard gets hurt, then Avery's your guy. And maybe that's what Kleiman wanted to see. But
no, red shirts are allowed to play in bowl games in 2022. That was a one-time waiver, though. So
okay. That's what I was looking for. Because I know some coach or some program, maybe a conference, was trying to pitch that as a rule change, that it would be 4 games plus the bowl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's just it says it's a one-time blanket waiver that was
got it
last year. So
that's good to know. Thank you.
Also from the text line, if Avery's as good as we think he is, I don't think he'll be around long enough to worry about eligibility. If you're saying that, then you obviously think that he is a first round quarterback.
Yeah, and
That
I mean,
doesn't happen very often.
he's 6'1". Let's pump the brakes on that.
I've seen Avery Johnson in person.
Yeah,
I saw him. We saw him
We
last
both
year.
did, yeah.
And I saw him play basketball 2 seasons ago when Mays played Seaman in the 5A state tournament.
He's 6'2".
They said
Sure
6'1" on the TV broadcast.
Sure.
Last night.
I will say this. I could tell immediately when I saw him play basketball the first time, like, he's a great athlete. He wasn't the best basketball player Mays had. He was the best athlete they had by a mile. And we saw him play football last year, and it was unbelievable. 6'2" with platforms on, maybe. He's not big.
Right.
And you could see on TV, I mean, he's relative to other Big 12 athletes, he's not exactly huge.
And that doesn't mean he can't be, and I think he's going to be an excellent Big 12 quarterback.
Sure,
but
agreed.
I think we're a long way from talking about him
Right.
like the way we talk
Leaving
about
early.
Bryce Young, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd rather have the red shirt just in case.
Yes. That's why I think that, to me, that's the most intriguing thing. Is he good enough to be the backup? Yes.
Yes.
But hopefully you don't need it. Now, the way that they maybe they'll treat Howard differently than Adrian Martinez and not run him 20 times a game.
I think they're going to hardly run him.
Yeah, so
would be my guess. I think you'll see some goal line stuff.
And if they do, DBs and safeties are lucky because that is an O lineman running down your throat. That's incredible. Let's get to the Jayhawks. No Daniels, game number 1 due to back injury. Everybody knows my thoughts. The most concerning injuries for people are feet and backs.
Yep.
Knees, head, shoulders, knees can be fixed.
So
Backs, not necessarily the case.
Reading between the lines, and maybe I'm off the mark on this, and you can tell me if you feel differently. I sort of got the feeling that if it hadn't been Missouri State, you probably would have seen him last week. But it was more important that he is as healthy as possible for Illinois.
Correct.
Onward.
Yeah.
And I mean, KU put up 48 points and won by 31. Didn't cover that final spread though. Won by 31 against Mo State with Jason Bean.
And did so while playing with their food for the better part of the first 2.5 quarters.
So we're in the press box at the Siemens Topeka West game on Friday night, and Greg is going through scores during the game, and he mentions the KU score. I'm like, Greg, I didn't need to know that. Like, you didn't need to tell me it's a 7-point game at halftime. You didn't have to say that.
Mo State was up 10-7.
So we get to the first play of the fourth quarter. Missouri State scores a touchdown. They cut it to 10. And I'm looking at the stats on my phone during a commercial break, and I think, how is this possible? KU is winning in yardage, first downs, third down percentage, everything. Every single stat, KU is destroying Missouri State. They only turn the ball over once. What is happening? And then the fourth quarter, things totally turned around. KU picked off 2 passes. They end up blowing them out.
Mm-hmm.
So the final score was indeed indicative of how dominant KU was statistically, but it didn't actually appear on the scoreboard for over 3 quarters, which I watched the whole game back last night because I didn't get to see it live. And I thought, how did this happen? Like, it ended the way it should have ended, but it was a very circuitous route to get there.
And it ended the way it ended because of turnovers. And games like this, to me, turnovers are such a big momentum shift and can change how things go. When I look at this, the first, and I did the same thing. I watched it back at not Friday, stupid Friday games. The defense wasn't great the first half.
No,
it wasn't. The second half, it was much better, which it tends to be when you're bigger and faster. And Missouri State just wore down, and KU just showed that they got better athletes.
I think you have to be pleased with how the defensive line played.
I agree.
They got a bunch of guys in there, and you saw flashes from a good number of guys coming in that defensive line. Like, that is kind of like going into last year. The biggest question mark for this defense is going to be, what do they produce on the front four? And there were some good signs. It wasn't overwhelming, but I think it certainly, as Jake, you pointed out, it got better as that game went on.
Yes. And maybe that's part of, hey, you know what? This is a great X's and O's staff. I will say that about KU. They do a terrific job of game adjustments and you can kind of see that a little bit, the way that this thing worked, and said, hey, this guy's going to do this. All right, we're going to alter some stuff. And I think that's what showed there.
I will also add, too, regarding the defense, they didn't have their defensive coordinator for the game. Brian Borland had a personal medical issue. So, I mean, Jordan Peterson's a stud position coach and recruiter, and he did fine. But I would imagine that probably plays into some sort of sluggish start as well.
What's interesting is both KU and K-State play their toughest non-conference game week 2. I hope people know that Troy is a better team than Missouri, in my opinion.
What, they win 11 games last year?
Troy is
11 or 12, yeah.
Troy is a good team this year, okay?
It's not too dissimilar, honestly, than Tulane last year.
Yes. Yeah. This is a good Troy team.
Yeah, they went 12-2 last year.
But the Illinois team will truly test the interior. They are good up front. They are a physical team. We'll find out just how far that the O-line and D-line has come under the Lance Leipold era, because this is a bigger jump. Going from SEMO to Troy is not as big a jump going from Mo State to Illinois. Like, that's why I said this is the biggest game for me, swing game for KU coming up on Friday.
I think for most people it is, because
if you can win this one, and BYU are huge.
I'm
so big in this one.
I'm interested why you add BYU to that.
Because I think it's the very first conference game.
Sure.
And it kind of also is predicated on how they do against Illinois. Because if they lose to Illinois, then that BYU game to me is even bigger.
Yeah.
But if they beat Illinois, my goodness, they can start 4-0.
Yeah, they'll be
for the second time and they'll be ranked in the top 25 again. Like, that is why the BYU game is so big for me, because that is a team that they can beat. They can also lose to. Same with Illinois. Like, Texas is going to beat KU. Oklahoma is going to beat KU. BYU can go either way. And that's why I think that's a big one. And this Illinois one is I just don't know. Like, I asked you, what can you take away from K-State? Like, they did what they were supposed to do. They manhandled a team that they have just inferior talent, right? Same thing for KU.
Yeah.
Like, I know Devin Neal is awesome. Man, that touchdown run was so good. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, he's a stud. But I'm bummed he had a 6-yard loss that cost him a 100-yard game.
I just don't. And then the same factor, with Jalen Daniels, like, what is going to is he going to play? I mean, Jason Bean was incredible. He was terrific.
KU's problem is not
Jalen Daniels.
Their problem is not going to be the playmaker spots, so to speak, really on either side. Because offensively, the running back, Dylan McDuffie, also looked pretty good. We know Highshaw can be good, had the fumble early, but he had a really nice touchdown run. The wide receivers, as long as everyone's healthy, I know Luke Grimm's banged up. That's unfortunate. But Trevor Wilson looked really good on Friday. I love the tight end room. Like, the playmakers on offense, you're solid. You're golden. Defensively, your flashy positions. Kobe Bryant, interception. The secondary is good. It's a very talented unit in the secondary, but it's going to be the areas where you build your team. We always talk about, games are won and lost in the trenches. I'm more optimistic about the offensive line than the defensive line, but against a Brett Bielema team, I don't know how. That's the best test you can get, because they're going to play old school football,
and they will run it and run it and run it and run it, and they will not try to throw it. Now,
well, they got a real quarterback.
No, but I'm saying, but that's what Bielema wants to do.
Sure,
but they do got some talent.
Allmeyer can play.
It was interesting, the Illinois Toledo game. Toledo, I think, better than what people think, but also you could tell that the Illini did lose some serious top-end talent from a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, they lost all Big Ten safety and corner in Sidney Brown, and Devin Witherspoon was a first-round pick.
Top 10 pick, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes. So they kind of were trying to figure some stuff out too. By the way, I mean, they almost lost that game. They needed a 4th and 15 conversion.
Yeah, 4th and long. They converted a deep ball, and they were fortunate to win that game against.
So I don't know. Like, I wouldn't.
That'll be fun.
I would not bet KU Illinois at all, because I have no idea what to expect from either team.
KU by 3 for what it's worth.
I think it opened at 3.5.
Yeah. I think has it moved since? It has. Sitting right at 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that. No way, because I don't. Week 2 is the hardest week of gambling because you don't know if
Well, you
one's
can catch some value if there's some overreactions or some underreactions out there.
Well, week 2 is so hard because you see, oh, wow, that team looked really, really good. And then the very next game, that team looked really, really bad. Like there's a lot of fluctuation from week 1 to week 2. A lot of, I will point that out.
Sure.
The biggest one was the Turner Gill era. They lost to NDSU and then beat 19th ranked Georgia Tech. I mean, absolutely smacked them. And they were ranked, 19th in the country. Like, no, that was the biggest upset of that week. Like, there's a lot that can go from week 1 to week 2. Just pointing that out. But that was a good win for both teams.
Yeah, great weekend.
And I think their toughest wins. If you looked at like the computer rankings and all of that, I do wonder if Troy is ahead of Missouri right now. Like, I'm not trying to say Missouri is doo-doo. I just think Troy is really good.
Let's see what SP Plus says.
Do
Do you have those? I'm pulling them up right now. Troy is 62nd. Mizzou is can't find him.
off the board?
34th.
I as long as Mizzou is starting Brady Cook, they're not going anywhere.
Mizzou is ranked ahead of Duke. They are also ranked ahead of TCU.
Yeah, I think Troy is going to be difficult, but I don't think this K-State team is going to underrate Troy the way they probably underrated Tulane a year ago.
I agree with that.
I don't think there are too many guys who are back who are going to say, we ain't going through that again. No way. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I do think K-State's going to handle their business.
Coming up, we'll take a look at Random Question Tuesday and recap the weekend here on 580 Sports Talk. Time for a little Random Question Tuesday. I had an 8-hour drive on Friday and yesterday. What is a necessity that you have to have for long road trips?
A car. Oh, man, you walked right into that one.
Dan, don't laugh. That was not funny.
It was a little funny.
That was not funny.
A little bit funny.
I'm not going to let the human Laffy Taffy joke tell me that my jokes aren't funny.
You got the Bazooka Joe and a gum wrapper jokes.
Need a car.
The popsicle stick ass joke.
By the way, I had those. I had those this weekend. I did.
Any good jokes on them?
Trying to remember what were they? Oh gosh, one of them.
I'm sure your kids got a kick out of them.
Yeah, yeah. They were very, very not great dad jokes because I don't really remember them, but it did have those.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all about what you got loaded up on your Spotify or Apple Music. You got to have a good playlist, maybe some podcasts if you're into that kind of thing. It's all about the tunes. It's all about what's coming through the speakers.
Yeah, I think that's the move. I don't know if I really need anything else. You have to have a good snack. Now, what that snack is, like, I could do with either I'm going to get a big old fast food meal and get in the car, and I can live with a bag of burgers and a milkshake from Brahms and live on that. Or
careful with that bag of burgers, man.
I'm going to get a extra large family size bag of Twizzlers and just eat the whole thing.
Okay.
Also, related to both of those, I need insulin. Possibly a lot of it
to live.
What's the necessity? Oxygen.
I mean, yeah.
See, my road trip,
This is 35 the whole way, right?
Yeah, all the way up to Minneapolis. Got to go around Des Moines, up, to Minneapolis. Not very hard. Then you get on 35 West.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, pretty easy. U.S. Bank Stadium, really nice, by the way.
Mhm.
Very nice. Bring your sunglasses though, because the sun goes through. Minus sunflower seeds. I don't worry about radio right now, Dan, because there's no point in turning the radio on. Because my kids talk all the time.
Yeah.
So you can't. Of the 8 hours, I listen to the radio for an hour.
You got some. They got Cuckoo Kangaroo on Spotify.
I don't know. I just listen to when everybody.
You said your kids aren't up on Cuckoo Kangaroo. That might be
not a big
a little further along. That's
we're just big into
kindergarten,
Disney.
first grade. Like my wife's class. They're big on the Cuckoo Kangaroo.
Big on Disney movies right now. Big Disney guys.
Yeah, you got to have entertainment for your passengers.
Yes.
If your passengers are 2 and 3 years old.
Correct.
Cuckoo Kangaroo has a song called "All I Eat Is Pizza."
Oh,
damn.
that's a heater.
Yeah,
Play that right now. I'm not even kidding.
Guys, I don't need to hear toddler music with my kids are not around.
Let's go. I used to eat hot dogs every single meal. Then I got scurvy. That sounds pretty real. Wow, these dudes are wordsmiths.
I don't want to hear Captain Kangaroo or whatever this is. It's kind of like
I've never even heard of this.
Like
play Cat Party.
I saw that one also.
Yeah, Cat Party. That's a heater.
Dan, what are you trying to give me an ulcer? Like when we had food this weekend, one of the meals was mac and cheese, and I couldn't.
Like that was the whole meal.
One of the main entrees was mac and cheese, and I just
You double up on something else then.
I did.
That's good.
Well, the problem was a couple of the main foods were this broccoli dish, gross,
Delicious.
mac and cheese. Yeah. Oh my God, Dan, turn this off right now. I get enough of this in my life. I don't get that work. Yeah, please.
I was also just outside of Minneapolis this weekend.
I know. Yeah, I kind of felt left out. Like Abby and I were like,
yeah.
you guys were both in Minneapolis, and I was at home.
I was in Eden Prairie.
I didn't
At
know
a wedding.
that.
Yeah, I was at a wedding. Yeah.
Eden Prairie, okay.
Yeah, I flew up on first thing Saturday morning and flew back Sunday morning. Yeah. At a wedding.
Out of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
You might have saw my brother. How about that? That's wild.
I may have.
You might.
It's certainly possible.
Mm-hmm.
What's your worst wedding experience?
Worst wedding experience?
It wasn't this one for me, by the way. Shout out to Aaron and Shane. Congrats to the happy couple. They had a very nice wedding and the best wedding food I've ever had in my life. It was unbelievable.
I don't remember how old I was, but I was a kid, like probably like third grade, maybe third grade. And one of my second cousins, I had a lot of second cousins because my grandpa had like 11 siblings. So I have a lot of second cousins. And one of them was getting married at the chapel of the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
So we were at the wedding and at the reception, and I had another distant cousin who was there, roughly my age. We were hanging out, we were dancing, we're having a good time. We decided we were going to drink coffee.
What?
It was nasty. It was nasty coffee. It turned me off of coffee for years.
That's pretty funny.
I don't think
Tried to put sugar in the coffee, didn't help. Did not make it taste any better to 7 or 8 year old Dan.
I got it.
Okay.
Went to a wedding, dry wedding.
I'll just say no more.
No, man, I get it. I mean, that's why Abby and I, despite neither of us drinking,
Correct.
we had open bar.
I had a great time at your wedding.
Yeah, y'all want to drink? That's fine.
No, we were at a wedding, and the reason why it was a dry wedding is because the place that they held it didn't allow booze. Huh!
Oh,
We found a way to bring the booze in, but it was annoying that we had to do that.
yeah, I can understand that.
Go ahead.
I was in high school. My then girlfriend, who I broke up and got back together with like 8 times, it was very toxic for 17-year-olds.
You had that relationship.
Oh yeah,
huh?
I did. No, I did. Everyone knew it too. It was a whole thing.
You were the laughing each other. Oh, they're gonna be back together again by Labor Day.
Yeah, it was usually true. Yeah. I went to her mom's wedding, and she like didn't talk to me the whole time. It was bad. It was rough.
Hey, Dan, what do you got?
All right, my random question: what household chore do you secretly enjoy doing?
Oh, vacuuming. Oh, well, it's not even a secret, really. Like vacuuming is the one. That's easily my favorite chore.
You know what? I don't mind doing the laundry.
You don't mind it?
Yeah, like I'll do it. Like everybody hates doing the laundry. No, I'm all right. Like if someone had to say, "Oh, Jake, you're on laundry," I'll be like, "Cool."
I hate doing the laundry.
My wife and I are frequent practitioners of the do a load of laundry and then leave it in the basket and forget to fold it and put it away for a day or 2 or longer. Who's to say?
Do you leave it in the washer sometimes?
I never leave it in the washer.
Yeah.
Now, left in the dryer is a different story.
Well, leaving it in the dryer, so you just can't leave it in the washer
No.
because then you
No,
got
we're both pretty good about not. Yeah,
because then you got to wash it again.
right.
Yeah, no, the laundry's fine. You know, that's why I can watch TV and fold laundry and do all that. That's not like that's not a problem.
I have discovered that I really enjoy like not gardening so much, but like we have a flower bed and I enjoy tending to my flowers, pulling weeds out of the flower bed and the surrounding area. I really enjoy just watering my flowers.
I can't do the weed pulling because that brings me back to too many bad memories when I was a kid.
And it was a punishment?
And it was a punishment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My mom she's a master gardener. She loves gardening. She's really good at it. You know, she if you see anything at my house, it's because my mom decided to do it. And she just tells me, do this, water these X amount of times. But growing up, if I got in trouble, I'd have to pull weeds, whether it be in the sandbox or the garden or whatever. And it sucked. And I hated it. So, Dan, you will not see me. No,
That's fine.
I can't do it. But I can see why. Like,
It's very satisfying.
Yeah, I can see
uproot
that.
them.
I can see that. Yeah. Coming up next, we recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk. Recap of the weekend here with the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm trying to remember a time when the state of Kansas had 3 Kansas running backs who are this good. DJ Giddens was awesome. Junction City kid, right?
Mhm.
Not very highly recruited, to be honest with you. Devin Neal, more of a 2-sport athlete. Was that run that he had was incredible. That little side shuffle, if you will.
Another Kansas kid,
right? Lawrence, right? You're talking right down I-70. And then now you know why, K-State fans were bummed when he decided to leave, and why Colorado Buffalo fans were excited when Deion was able to flip Dylan Edwards. What a first game for Dylan. I mean, think about that. Dylan Edwards, DJ Giddens, Devin Neal, and I'm probably forgetting, some from around the area, but those are the 3, 2 at the state schools, and then 1, just down I-70, a ways away I-70. But all 3 of those guys are just special. That's and DJ Giddens might be the biggest surprise, considering, he was good at Junction. Don't get me wrong.
He was a very good player.
But I don't know if anybody saw,
him becoming this,
but being a beast. Like, the dude is big. Like, that's the one thing, when people talk about, thunder and lightning, he's the thunder. I don't think we thought he would be thunder, in college when you saw him at Junction. Like, he was really good. But that's awesome to see those 3 guys show out that well. And all 3 Kansas kids, that's the cool thing about those 3. I thought that was awesome. All 3 just studs.
Yeah, the good for me, aside from KU and K-State both winning, it was just an incredible week 1 of college football. You had the great upsets with Wyoming over Texas Tech in a thriller. Bad look for Texas Tech, by the way. Bad look for Texas Tech. Yesterday, the Duke game, that was a thriller, and you know how much, a thrill for people who hate Clemson and Dabo like myself. That was awesome. The Florida State performance against LSU, that was a really competitive game early, and then Florida State beat the brakes off of Brian Kelly. Again, very enjoyable to watch Brian Kelly lose. Or Oregon State was awesome this weekend. So many great team performances by a lot of teams that aren't necessarily the biggest of big names. So it was a great week for college football. Also, again, I was at a wedding with really good food, and it was outside, and the weather was nice, and it was great. I can now add Minnesota to the list of states I've been to. I've never been before. I think I'm at 33 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think 33. So good for me.
Yeah. Good for me from the weekend. We're probably not going to mention it at any other point, so I may as well mention it now. Yo, Cole Reagan's at it again. 6 innings, a 1-hit shutout ball yesterday.
That is American League Pitcher of the Month, Cole Reagan.
Between Cole Reagans and Bobby Witt Jr., the Royals have like a legit 1-2 punch as far as like number 1 starter and best player that would stand up with any other in baseball right now. It's just a shame about roster spots 3 through 26, but roster spots 1 through 2 appear to be on lock for the next handful of years. It's not a fluke. It's the real thing. Cole Reagans is a stud. He's an ace. He's a frontline guy, and he was awesome again yesterday. And the Royals beat the White Sox brains in. That's always fun.
Okay. Dan, I don't want to put cold water all over your good here, but I've been beaten, and I've been beaten down too much over the last 8 years.
It's not. Would it help if it's not just me saying this?
It doesn't, because you are one of the most. You love baseball more than anybody I know. You love it, and you know baseball more so than most people I know. But damn it, like, this happens all the time. Like, Cole Reagans is gonna show up on March 29th next year and get shelled, and he's gonna stink in April. And this is why I'm like, this is why we can't have nice things. Like,
I understand why you feel that way.
So part of I don't care what you do when you've only won 20 games out of 140. Great. You're pitching well when it doesn't mean squat. Awesome. You're Deshaun Watson with the Houston Texans, like just all sorts of, garbage touchdowns and yards.
Wouldn't you rather be good when it doesn't matter than also be bad when it doesn't matter?
Yeah, they got enough guys who are bad when it doesn't matter.
You know, like
Be excited about the ones who are good when it doesn't matter.
but I want them to be good when it matters.
Do you have to have
But it
enough?
doesn't.
Yeah, you have to have enough guys to be good so that it can matter.
I know, but
And the Royals have two.
I hope you're right. I really, really do.
Yeah.
He is good though, man. He is throwing like what? How did it not work for the Rangers?
They
just didn't think his arm would come back after his second Tommy John.
The Royals encouraged him to seek some outside consulting. He had been working with a lab that helped him get his velocity up, and they also suggested a slider. And Brian Sweeney, the Royals pitching coach, said, "Yeah, why don't we try just a little bit of a slower cutter, basically than what you've been throwing, a bullet slider." And that's a brand new pitch for him, and it's a wipeout pitch. Like
he
awesome. Went from not having that pitch to it being maybe his best pitch. And that's all since he put on a Royals uniform. So, yeah, genuinely exciting. Cole Reagan's my good for the weekend.
It's so good. Like, it's incredible. What was your bad for the weekend?
My bad is that while I was in Minnesota, I didn't get to watch a ton of college football live. And it was also, I just wanted to watch some games. We were going to be busy with the wedding and travel, and I just wanted to watch some games. So we land, we drive out to where our hotel is. There's an old Chicago, like a block away. We say, sure, let's go there and watch games. And we sit down, and there's already only a few TVs in the bar. And some dude walks in and says, yeah, can you put the U.S. Open on? Can you put tennis on? Brother, it is week 1 of the college football season. I am sorry, but your Andy Roddick loving ass does not belong in here right now. Sorry. Tough beans, Marty Fish. Get out of here. It's football time. Then someone else walks in.
Hey, well, why is Andy Roddick and Marty Fish taking?
Sorry, Jack Sock, not your time, pal.
Man, that's Kansas City native.
Not your time. Then someone else comes in and says, "Hey, put on Mav TV." You know what that is? Because I didn't. They were showing super bikes. You know what that is? Little motocross action
on a college football
Saturday. It's week 1, pal. I know. We've got loyal listeners who are big motorsports fans, and you can have 364 days a year. But I wanted to watch football. Damn it!
I would have left.
I got Oklahoma beating Butch Jones's brains into dust on one TV.
I would have dropped 220.
And then I got mini bikes and tennis.
I would have dropped 220s on the table and booked. I would have
paid. No, they didn't deserve jack.
Well, you had to pay for your food.
I should have left before they brought it.
Well,
yeah, probably.
This is football time.
I
would have
done.
Sir,
I don't think that's how that works.
And the dude who asked for the little mini bike racing, purple and gold shirt, wearing a Vikings t-shirt. As if I could respect you Vikings fans any less. Putting super bikes on my TV. Could have been watching TCU Colorado, you goon.
My bad is that my wife and I closed pool this weekend, and that always makes me sad. And my ugly is the Chris Jones situation. Shows no signs of ending anytime soon.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
No, my ugly is Travis Kelce.
We do have an update from Rap Sheet himself, Ian Rappaport, tweeting out. Travis Kelce's status is in doubt for Thursday night's opener because of his knee injury. But sources tell me and Tom Pelissero it's not believed to be a long-term injury. They'll wait for swelling to go down and then go from there.
Wait for swelling to go down.
Keep dropping that spread, Vegas. Keep dropping it down. Let's get it to 5 by the end of the day. How about 4.5? I'm going to put my rent on it. Don't do that. That is not financial advice. Do not do that.
We'll get a timeout. We'll get to the most recent updates on Travis Kelce and his hyperextension. Talk Big 12. What is wrong with you? Michael Swain in the 4 o'clock hour. 580 Sports Talk on the way. Thank you so much for stopping by and joining us on this Victory Tuesday. Jake Levon, Brendan Orzinski, Dan Lucero with you. Royals baseball tonight against the White Sox. Hopefully they can take care of business. Bobby Wood Jr. hadn't hit a home run in a while. Needs 2 more. And Cole Reagans is awesome. Brady Singer going tonight.
Fresh off the paternity list. Congratulations to the Singers.
Yep, congratulations.
Healthy baby boy, I think.
Not getting sleep now. Awesome. Good for you. Good for you.
That was like
good for you.
The quarterback for Wyoming this weekend, Andrew Peasley, is a transfer from Utah State or Nevada. He has a 2-month-old at home. So not only was he out partying all night, I assume, after an unbelievable win at home for Wyoming, in which he was a hero, then he got to go home and take care of a baby.
I'm going to guess mom, grandma, and grandpa were there to help out as well.
That's Andrew, the people's champ, Peasley, to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Craig Bull said after that game, that kid's tougher than boot leather, which is the most Wyoming football coach quote I can conceive.
Craig Bull answer. Yes, very much so.
By the way, Brady Singer is indeed married.
Yes.
Last week I said I didn't know what their relationship was. But
I didn't either. But baby boy, I think.
Yes, a boy named Bo. The same name of the child of former Lyons Township High School Lion and current Philadelphia Eagle Jake Elliott's new son. His wife gave birth this offseason.
Bo must be a trendy name these days.
Yeah. It's the new Wyatt.
Named after, obviously.
Buddy of mine, literally, just had a baby boy there first. Wyatt, first name, yeah.
Big name.
So Wyatt is also the new Wyatt.
Yeah. Call all those kids Erp.
We will get to our What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain will talk a little KU today as well. Big news of the day. Travis Kelce, hyperextension in his knee. Now, we just told you a little bit ago, not to be considered long-term. We'll have to wait till the swelling goes down. Doesn't look like Thursday is going to be a possibility. Now, obviously, things can change over 48 hours. But if swelling is an issue, and I don't know how much it's going to go down, I don't see Travis Kelce playing in this game. I just don't see that. If you're talking about swelling...
Well, sometimes swelling does go down in 24 hours. Again, it does seem like if we're not talking about something long-term, that would have suggested ligament damage, right? Although I guess long-term can mean a lot of things. Long-term can mean the season. Long-term could also mean like a month. And you could be saying, well, we don't expect it to be long-term. It could still be, a multi-week injury. But it would seem to be more likely at this point, and we're all just reading tea leaves, but it would seem to be more likely at this point that it comes down to pain tolerance than more so than like something is structurally off. Like he might just bruise the thing.
Yeah, because
that could happen with a hyperextension.
Yeah, the hyperextension you can be ready to go the next day. Like it just depends on the severity of it.
Yeah.
The hyperextension is just your knee bending backwards. You know how your knee bends forwards?
Bends like a flamingo leg.
Yeah, it bends awkwardly. And, it's kind of like, the Mahomes situation, when his knee moved over to the side. Normally that's like a 6-week injury. He could have played in 2 weeks. Like you just never know kind of in this situation.
The one thing that I can promise you, and by you, I mean you, Jake, and you, Brendan, but also you, the listener. You will never, ever see me retweet David Chow on the platform formerly known as Twitter. And you shouldn't retweet him or follow him or listen to a word that drunk quack has to say about anything from miles away, just diagnosing injuries based on not even in this case, like video, just hearsay. Like, well, this is what it could be. No, don't listen to him. There's a reason he's not working for anybody credible anymore.
Yeah, don't listen to anything until it comes from someone is credible. It's like realignment stuff. Do not listen to bloggers. Listen to Brett McMurphy.
What I don't look at it so much the injury, and because the only people who know are the people who have the actual results. I look at it more as if, how does the game plan change? You went from, and I don't think Travis Kelce is going to play after hearing that, waiting for the swelling to go down. Now, if he does, great. If not, but let's say he doesn't, or he's not going to be his total self. How does that change the game plan? How does that change the roster? You got to add Bushman now. They're going to add Matt Bushman. I'm going to tell you that right now because they want to have 3 tight ends available. What does that do to the roster? Somebody's got to go down. Who's going down? All right.
We don't like inactive.
No, like off the 53 because
why?
Matt Bushman's on the practice squad.
Yeah, but if this isn't a long-term injury, you just elevate him.
Then who's going to be inactive? Because I think he's going to play. I think Bushman's going to play.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wonder, how does that affect what they were planning on doing? Were they planning on bringing up Michael P. Ryan? Oh, well, guess what? Now they can't because they got to bring up Michael Bush or Bushman.
Matt
Bushman. Like, that's the stuff I look at. Oh, they were really going to do, like you mentioned, they run a lot of 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 tight ends. Guess what? They're probably not going to do that now because you don't want Travis Kelce putting his hand in the dirt going up against, Aiden Hutchinson. How does that factor in there? Were they planning on doing a lot of stuff with Travis Kelce? Can Noah Gray do all that stuff? Is Noah Gray capable of just filling in and doing it? Like, to me, it's not so much, is Travis Kelce going to play? Is he not going to play? It's what changes everything else because he is that important of a piece on this team. That's how I look at these type of injuries.
So earlier in the program, we said, and this was accurate, that Travis Kelce has not missed a game due to injury since 2013. That does not mean that Travis Kelce has not missed a game since 2013. Take you back to 2021, week 16. Travis Kelce is on the COVID list.
Yeah, he had COVID.
And did not play as the Chiefs took on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they would play a couple of weeks later in the first round of the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes in that game was 23 of 30 for 258 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The leading receiver in that game for the Kansas City Chiefs was a gentleman named Byron Pringle. 6 catches, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. The player with the second most receiving yards that day for the Chiefs was a gentleman named Derek Gore. He had the most touches.
Running back.
Yes, he had the most touches of any Chief in that game. 12 carries and 3 receptions for a total of 104 yards. Noah Gray caught both of his targets in that game for 12 yards. Blake Bell caught his lone target for 11 yards. So here we have precedent that the Chiefs can play against a quality opponent without Travis Kelce and find a way. So there's that. But also, I think it's interesting to know that in that game in particular, the running backs were involved in the passing game quite a bit because Gore caught 3 passes. Darrell Williams caught 3 passes. Those were the running backs, the primary running backs in that game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire also caught a pass. So they played 3 running backs and almost split the carries right down the middle. Gore had 12 carries, Williams had 11, and Clyde had 9. And between the 3 of them, 7 targets, 7 receptions. So the backs are more involved in the passing game, and a player like Byron Pringle became more involved in the passing game. So it's still kind of those slot options that you might see be a little bit more impactful. Those speed plays or speed players get a little bit more involved. That's just scouting the box score on what happened the last time the Chiefs didn't have Travis Kelce in a football game that mattered.
I'd also like to make a clarification on a rule. If you elevate Matt Bushman from the practice squad, that does not count against your game day eligibles. You can add 2 practice squad players to your game day roster and have them be active. So if you elevate 2 practice squad players, you get 48 active players, not 46.
Okay.
So theoretically, let's say it's a 3-week injury that to be fully healthy, Travis Kelce can return week 4. You could, in theory, elevate Matt Bushman 3 weeks in a row, not have him count against your game day roster, and not have him count as a player taken off the practice squad. So they do, I think, have, and they also signed, and he's only played briefly in the NFL, I think just a couple snaps with the Jaguars. They actually do have a second tight end on the practice squad, Garrett Prince, who I think is a Kansas City area guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, who had been with the Jaguars this past year. So they've got plenty of options in terms of tight end depth. Now, granted, just saying we have a practice squad tight end does not replace Travis Kelce.
No.
That is obvious. But it at least gives you the opportunity to still run some of that 13 personnel stuff that we were talking about earlier.
I still think the Chiefs are going to score because and this is another reason why having an offensive line that you think is elite. Hey, we always said, hey, Patrick Mahomes, just give him time and he can make it work. I do think the Chiefs wide receivers are all, like number 2s or number 3s. They're all like that.
It's a good group.
And I think the only question about this game without Travis Kelce, if he does not play, and if he does play, he's not going to be 100%, is the separation aspect of it. Because now you are going to be going up against a, really green offense with MVS as your one guy who's been there the entire time, who's really been there and has substantial reps with Patrick Mahomes. You don't have to double team anybody. You don't. Like, now you can just play straight up. People are probably going to say, well, now instead of doubling, you can blitz Patrick Mahomes. You don't blitz Patrick Mahomes. You're ridiculous. Like, the numbers, I don't need to look that up, but he's basically the greatest quarterback of all time when someone blitzes him, okay? So you're not going to blitz Patrick Mahomes, all right? That's silly. But what you can do is play back and play man, play nickel defense, and you've got you don't have to, you can put a safety on Noah Gray and be okay. You put a safety on Travis Kelce, that ain't going to work. So that, I look, this puts a lot more pressure on the other guys. Now, instead of one-on-one coverage against Kadarius Toney or, Rice and Sky Moore and MVS and Richie James and future Hall of Famer Justin Ross, now you got safety help over the top on everybody because they don't have to have somebody follow 87 everywhere. That is the biggest adjustment to me, is now it's not just one guy. The hardest coverage to beat is man-to-man defense with a free safety playing. I'm just playing backyard football. I read the eyes. I look at the formation. Oh, they're in 2 over here, 1 over here. They run a lot of this. My side of the field is now half. So now you've got man-to-man defense plus a guy just roving around. That's hard to beat.
I imagine you will probably see more side-to-side offensive action in this game. I assume there will be more horizontal concepts.
Get guys on the perimeter. Yeah, and the Chiefs have a bunch of guys capable of making plays in those spots.
If I may play offensive coordinator for a moment, something you could also do to try to get freer releases, to try to get playmakers the ball, and this would probably include your running backs and tight ends, line them up in the backfield. Like, we've talked a lot about how Noah Gray is going to play a fullback role, at least at times this year.
Mm-hmm.
Line up double barrel in the shotgun at times. It might not end up giving you an opportunity to have as many explosive plays, but if you're going to run stuff with Noah Gray as a pass catcher, line him up in the backfield. Put him next to Patrick Mahomes in the gun so he can get a free release. You can do that with some wide receivers too. You can do that with Toney. You absolutely can do that with Kadarius
and they
Toney.
do a lot of motion that lets get releases,
orbit
and all
motion, jet motion, all those different things.
Yeah.
Those are staple Chiefs concepts, and maybe you are a little bit more reliant on those in a situation like this.
I think that if you were ever going to be in a game, just man to man, talent to talent, and you weren't going to have your best receiver available, tight end in this case, Travis Kelce, a team that's secondary is as weak as the Lions is probably the best matchup you could hope for. It's not a good situation, obviously.
Yeah, you'd rather have him than not have him.
Here's your starting 5, okay, for the Lions going into week 1. Your projected starting 5 when you include 2 corners, a nickel, and 2 safeties. Safeties are actually okay. Tracy Walker's been around for quite a while, and Kirby Joseph was a rookie last year who had a really good year. So that's a tough one there. Emmanuel Mosley is going to start at corner. Emmanuel Mosley was like CB 3 or 4 in San Francisco the last couple of years. Cameron Sutton, who was an unrestricted free agent who came over from Pittsburgh. He's fine. I mean, he's an NFL player. Like that's what I can say about Cameron Sutton. And then you've got CJ Gardner-Johnson in the nickel, who's going to kind of play a fringe, like a hybrid safety role. Same with their rookie, Brian Branch, the kid out of Alabama. They're fine. Like, CJ GJ is a good player. I think Brian Branch fell in the draft a little bit, but he's a decent prospect. Like, there's a bunch of okay players there, but that's not you're not facing off with a team that has like a true shutdown corner. So you end up in a game where, okay, not only do we not have Travis Kelce, but also the right boundary is untouchable. Like, we cannot use MVS or we cannot use Tony because they're going to be shut down all game. So we really have to make it work with second string tight ends, a second year slot receiver, and Rashee Rice. Like that's what we have to work with here. You are going to still have, I think, at least some decent matchups because this isn't an especially deep nor an especially talented secondary.
The offensive line has a chance to. I mean, this is why you pay them dudes up front. Hey,
Absolutely.
We've got the quarterback. We're going to protect him. Reed and Mahomes and, the Pips can score 30. That's just the way you are putting together this team. And I think the wide receivers are better than most, but we will see it without the guy that draws all the attention.
You're going to have to scheme guys open a little bit more, but they've got those plays in the holster.
Lots to get to. We will break a little bit more of it down coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll get a quick timeout. Coming up next, we got What Is Wrong With You and talk a little KU with Michael Swain here on 580 Sports.
It is time for the first What Is Wrong With You for the month of September. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you for What Is Wrong With You and throughout the rest of the show today. Who ended up winning the monthly championship?
The monthly championship went to You don't remember?
No, who ended up
Who
winning
did we
it?
pick? We picked the oblivious boyfriend.
It was the oblivious boyfriend.
Yeah, we picked the oblivious boyfriend.
That was
You threw me off for a second because I was like, wait a minute, you were here.
I was like, wait a minute, who did we end up picking? Yes, it was the oblivious boyfriend. That was on Friday. That won our August championship. We decided that even though it was September 1st. So we've got a brand new month starting today. We have talked a few times. We're going to go with my story first here. We have talked a few times about the sickness that is being addicted to posting. Some people just need to post.
Love to get those posts off.
They are terminally online. They need to tell you about this cool new thing they have. Some people are the opposite. Some people love to post because they love to tell you how bad their life is. Like to say, dang, my life sucks. Look at this bad thing that happened. Feel sorry for me. Some people, they'll love to brag about their cool stuff, whether it's a good thing that happened to them or material possessions or whatever. And with that, we head to Deltona, Florida, where a Palm Coast man was arrested after deputies connected him to a string of car break-ins in Deltona that he reportedly did while driving around in a stolen Mercedes-Benz that he had posted about on his social media. 23-year-old Nicholas Coffey was reportedly driving through Deltona in a Mercedes-Benz that was stolen out of Ormond Beach, Florida, with another person when the two were caught on residential security cameras. Coffey was also caught on video at 4:30 a.m. Saturday when he stopped at a Deltona gas station in the stolen car and made a purchase inside the store. He had the same face covering around his neck and blue latex gloves that deputies observed in the residential security cameras earlier that night. You couldn't take off the latex gloves to go into the store, dude.
Sometimes you just get comfortable with something on.
I guess. I'm sure that you could have replaced them with another pair, but apparently not for Mr. Coffey.
Sort of like when we were all in our masking era a couple of years back. Like
yeah.
You'd go into the store, you'd have like some of us chose to wear like the gaiters, like around your neck. You pull it up over your nose, go to the grocery store, do whatever. And sometimes I just be in my apartment and realize, oh wait, I still have that on from when I went to the grocery store 4 hours ago.
When
it was snug on my neck.
It was there. Walking outside in the cold, I'm not going to lie, very useful because I get cold very easily. When images from the gas station circulated, a Volusia detective, Volusia County, recognized Coffey, who had a warrant out for his arrest for a separate case. His distinct face and neck tattoos were visible in the security images. Coffey's social media also displayed multiple photos of him wearing the same clothing in the gas station video and the residential security footage. He also reportedly posted on that social media about having a new Mercedes-Benz. I wonder how he got it.
Yeah, you don't do that.
License plate reader data also showed the stolen Mercedes was in Deltona from 3 a.m. to 5:45 Saturday, around the same time as the break-ins. Coffey was tracked down in Daytona Beach 5 a.m. Sunday and was arrested on those outstanding warrants. He has been charged with 11 counts of conspiracy to commit burglary of a conveyance and 1 count of conspiracy to commit attempted burglary of a conveyance, with total bonds set at $57,500. The investigation has not yet identified the second suspect. So let's recap. This man stole a Mercedes-Benz. That is strike 1. He posted about it on a social media. That is strike 2. He used it to commit another crime. That is strike 3. He was caught on camera committing those crimes. Strike 4. He wore the gear that he wore at the burglaries into another place that always has cameras. That is strike 5. And finally, he has very obvious tattoos, and I'm looking at them right now. He's got tattoos on his face. His entire neck is tattooed with very obvious imagery. He did not cover any of it up while conducting these robberies or going into the gas station. That is strike 6. You only get 3 of them. And in the court of law, you don't even usually get that many. He struck out twice.
Vance in the YouTube comments asked the question, well, what's the rule number 1 on what is wrong with you about breaking the law? He broke like rules number 1 through 5.
Don't commit a crime while in the process of committing another crime.
Don't tell people you committed a crime on your social media.
Yeah, don't brag about the crimes you've committed.
Like those might be rule number 1 and rule number 2. So
he just loved to post. He had to tell people about his Mercedes.
He did. One of his myriad failings in this regard. All right, for my story today, we are going to Texas, and I love a good scam story on what is wrong with you. And we've got one here. Now, I've got a link in our show notes from the Charlotte Observer, but if you click on the first hyperlink, Brendan, you'll be able to follow along as I read from justice.gov. A 48-year-old Iola resident has pleaded guilty, and that's Iola, Texas, not Iola, Kansas, has pleaded guilty to interstate transportation of waging paraphernalia. Marcos Trevino admitted to operating a raffle that offered a chance to win a limited edition Dodge Challenger SRT Demon automobile. He ran this raffle for 5 years, 2018 to 2022. He promoted it throughout the country on various websites, social media, and at auto shows. The raffle's website made it appear as though the participant was not purchasing a ticket. They were supposedly buying a koozie. And in the course of buying the koozie, you would get one entry for a drawing, and the winner would win the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon. The total cost of each of the beverage holders was $105. $100 to get into the raffle, $5 for a processing fee. The rules claimed no purchase was necessary and that a purchase would not improve chances of winning. However, there was no alternate means of entry other than the purchase of the koozie. Despite the raffle being in existence, again, from 2018 to 2022, there was no drawing, nor was there a receipt of prizes by any participants. No one has ever received a koozie. Trevino still had the car on his property at the time of his arrest. According to the website, total ticket sales reached 765. That resulted in funds totaling $80,325. Now, why is this illegal, you ask? Great question. There's actually a lot of reasons why this is illegal. A charitable organization does not run the raffle. There was no date set for the drawing. There was no end date. Proceeds were not spent on a lawful purpose, and it included statewide and interstate advertising. In addition, although the website claimed a money-back guarantee, there was no method described for a participant to get their money back. Lopez faces up to 5 years in federal prison, as well as a possible $250,000 maximum fine. He could also be ordered to forfeit the earnings from the raffle. You don't say.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
And provide restitution to the participants. So the car was very real.
It just wasn't actually being raffled off.
Nothing else about this was.
This is... How did he not get caught for this long?
I know, 4 years. Like, if I bought a $105 koozie, I got a chance to win a car. Hey, great. Hey, remember that koozie I bought in 2018? Here I am, it's 2021, and I'm still using this koozie for my beers while I work out in the yard. But I never heard about that raffle. Hey,
honey, where'd this koozie come from? Oh, I spent $105 on it with a chance to win a car. Oh, when was that? 2018.
Authorities said the raffle was supposed to take place when 2,000 koozies were sold. They never got close. They got to 765, and then nobody ever got a damn koozie. So at the very least, I want my damn koozie. I spent $105 to get in on this raffle, and you promised me one thing. I would get something out of this experience, a beverage holder to keep my beverages cool in the summertime months. And you could not even provide that for me.
I think I'm going to go with this one today, mostly because of the fact that it lasted for so long.
It lasted for 4 years.
2018 through some part of 2018 through some part of 2022.
Now, I get that, like, there were some distractions in 2020. Like, I understand if maybe during that time you had some other things going on.
The government was working on other things.
Yes, and you forgot, perhaps, if on an individual level, that in 2018 you broke some stranger off $105 because he said at a car show that he was going to hold a raffle for a Dodge Challenger and that you had to spend $105 to get in on it. Maybe you forgot. But at some point, like, don't people start asking like a lot of questions?
You would hope. You would absolutely hope. Yeah, I'm going to go with this one today, although I think it's close. Our terminal poster making 6 different mistakes in the process of committing these crimes is a pretty good one.
Yeah, but I just like imagining people showing up at this dude's door like, where's my koozie? Where's my koozie? Where's my koozie?
Is this the car I'm supposed to win? That's our first winner for the month in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications. That saves your time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, we'll talk to Michael Swain of Fog.net all about KU's Week 1 win over Missouri State. That's up next on 580 Sports Talk. The Kansas Jayhawks are off to a 1-0 start to the college football season. And to break down a great start for KU, we welcome in our KU insider. He is Michael Swain from Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. This is Jayhawk Weekly. Michael joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at mswain24/7. And, of course, going over to Fog.net for all the best coverage of everything going on with KU. And, Michael, before we break down the game, I know you guys over at 24/7 Sports have a 50% off deal running right now.
Yeah, we do. We do. For folks that haven't signed up or tried it yet, you can get kind of my perspective on a lot of the football games, plus basketball recruiting intel. Obviously, a big basketball weekend just took place. We're kind of in the heart of basketball recruiting season, so that's going to continue to unfold over the next few weeks. And obviously, KU football recruiting will continue to unfold as they stop having Friday night games and can have high school recruiting visitors again. So we cover it all for folks on VIP, and you can join right now for about $4.50 a month for the next year. So definitely don't miss out. It'll end tonight at 11 p.m. Central. So definitely check it out. If you've been on the fence, there's not a better time to sign up.
Yeah, guys, it is absolutely worth it. Dan's a 24/7 VIP member. I'm one as well. You're then the VIP board and all the VIP stuff that Michael and his crew pour out at fog.net. So go do that right now. Sale going on until 11 o'clock tonight. Let's get to the game from Friday night, though, Michael. KU wins and won convincingly when you look at the final score. I didn't get to watch live, so I was following along with the stats, Michael, and throughout the game, despite it being 7 points at halftime and 10 points after the first play of the fourth quarter, I'm looking at the stats and I think KU should be dominating. Like, they are winning every single statistical category. Bean's numbers looked great. The running game was good. The defense seemed to be doing just fine. And yet it took until the fourth quarter and a couple of turnovers by Mo State for KU to finally pour it on and pull away for good. What was your big takeaway from this game? Did it go about the way you expected it to go without Jalen Daniels? Did you feel like there were maybe some more concerns or some more things to be excited about? Just overall big picture, how'd you feel that KU performed?
I thought it was a good performance overall. I think it's exactly kind of what you'd expect in a season opener, right? I think there were a lot of positives, right? I think the defensive line looking really athletic. Obviously, I think every other offensive line KU plays this year will be better than Missouri State, but you still can see the way guys are getting off the ball looks a lot different than it did this time last year. That really stood out as a positive. I think Jason Bean being as efficient as he was a good positive. And I think too on the other side, right? I think coaching staff has just enough throughout the course of the game that they can really harp on and have everyone's attention. And I think you nailed it, right? The stats show that KU dominated. And this is a game that you're looking at KU scoring 48 points. And look, this is one of those deals where if Daniel Highshaw doesn't fumble and KU or Mason Fairchild doesn't miss a block and KU doesn't get, stuffed on 4th and 1, all of a sudden you're talking about, at least 10 points, if not 2 touchdowns. Then you're looking at KU hanging 60 on an FCS team. So I think it's one of those where just the timing of those mistakes on KU's end where they came in back-to-back possessions, I think that really played into the hands of Missouri State where they were able to keep that score a little bit closer where, I think I saw some memes circulating about the score when I think KU was trailing. But I think if anybody watched that game, I think you'd understand that wasn't a close game. It was just two untimely turnovers led to what ended up being a little bit closer of a scoreline. So I think overall it's a game where KU showed enough to make you feel pretty good going into week 2, but the coaching staff still has plenty they can harp on this week, which I'm sure they're loving as well.
I understand that it is Missouri State, and it's not even the Missouri State of a few years ago where they were a regular FCS, playoff contender. I get that. But I don't know how you could be impressed or couldn't be impressed by the offensive line. And while there were some really good individual performances, again, we'll get to Bean in a second. Devin Neal had a big day, some defensive players as well. I thought the offensive line was incredible. And I know Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator, talked about it earlier today, that they barely allowed any pass pressure throughout the contest. This is a group that we've talked about a lot and have hyped up a lot going into this year. It's an extremely veteran group. How did you feel about the way they played? And do you kind of feel the same way that Andy Kotelnicki feel that they played about as well as any group on the field?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, for me, we all know what they can do in pass pro, right? They've allowed, what's the number? I think maybe like 12 or something sacks over the course of 2 seasons, or maybe it's averaging under 12 per season. But this is an offensive line that in pass protection has done an incredible job. They allowed fewer than 10 sacks last year. Like, we know KU's going to protect the quarterback, right? That's not the question. The question is, how do they do run blocking? And I think they showed out pretty well. I think someone like Kobe Baines came in, and Lance Leipold has used the word physical to describe Kobe over the last 12 months. And he really showed that playing at right guard. Now we'll see if Armaje Reed-Adams starts at left guard after he's got more practice time under his belt this week. And of course, that would move Michael Ford back to right guard. But I think this is an offensive line that when you're going to play Dominic Pooney at left tackle, like that should contribute to a better push of the line of scrimmage because, Pooney is a very physical player. And so I think overall it's one of these situations where, okay, that's not a very good defensive line they went up against, but still you want to see those guys get a push up front. And I think they did enough there to make you feel pretty good. But I'll tell you what, this time next week, we're going to know a lot more about this offensive line and really where it's at, because this front 7 that's coming into Lawrence this weekend is going to be really, really tough. And I'd argue maybe the best front 7 KU's going to play all season.
Michael Swain is our guest. He covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. It's Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go follow him on Twitter at mswain247. And, of course, check out Fog.net for all the best coverage of all things KU sports. Jason Bean had a very efficient day. He got the call because Jalen Daniels wasn't quite ready to go. We heard the explanation from Lance Leipold, didn't have enough team reps. Hopefully he's good enough to go coming up against Illinois this week. But for Jason Bean, who was once again hyped up like crazy during camp, that's now 2 years in a row. We've heard he's so much better. He's done so much. He's been great during camp, etc. Did you notice anything particularly different about his game or his handle on the offense this time compared to the last time we saw him on the field late last year?
Yeah, I think there might just be a certain level of comfort where I think there are certain throws that Jason Bean knows he can make in this offense. And I don't think there's any hesitation on those throws, where I think if you go back and look at 2021, maybe there was a little bit more hesitation. And I think of some of those third down plays that he had, right? There's the slant to Quinn Skinner. There's a throw over the middle to Mason Fairchild. There's another play to Lawrence Arnold. Like, I think there are so many more throws now where you're looking and think, yeah, that's a confident quarterback stepping up and making a confident throw in a big moment. And I think that's exactly what KU needs from being in the opportunities that he's going to get this season. I think in terms of his ability as a rusher, I think he's shown more too, that he's more willing to get vertical. I think a lot of times in the past, he's been one that's going to run horizontal and try and get upfield. But if there's contact, maybe he's going to try and get out of bounds. I think he's shown more that he's willing to turn and plant his foot and get upfield. And so I think he's someone that really continues to show what is great about college football. You see the development of players over the course of time when they're given time that they can improve. And I think Jason, over the course of his kind of entering 3 years in Lawrence now, he's really improved. And you see a more well-rounded quarterback out there than you saw at the start of 2021 or even really during that TCU game last year. I think he just looks so much more poised, experienced, and ready to go. So I think regardless of if Jalen plays this Friday or not, like KU has a good quarterback they can win the game with. Obviously, I think everyone would say, though, that Jalen Daniels raises the ceiling of what this team can be, though.
Our guest is Michael Swain of Fog.net. This is Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Tuesday at this time as Michael joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Michael, the defensive front in week one, there were some struggles early on. They got better as the game went along. Lance Leipold called a lot of those guys in for some praise, for some credit in his post-game remarks. What was your evaluation of how those guys played, and who came out of that looking the best, maybe, of the front four, looking like the guys that are going to be the core pieces of that very important unit?
Yeah, well, I think we're going to be talking, maybe this time in November, Lance Leipold will probably give a quote about Devin Phillips being the unsung hero of KU's defensive line. He's not going to go out there and make splashy plays or go and knock someone's head off or knock someone's helmet off. Like, he's just going to go take on double teams and make life really, really hard for opposing offensive coordinators. And I think he's someone that I'm really excited to watch over the course of the season. I think it's really hard to not get excited about what you saw from the young defensive ends Kansas has. Austin Booker, right? The only stat he technically finished with was a personal foul call. But if you watch the game, Austin Booker really stood out. He's incredibly fast off the edge. The first step really, really stood out. You look at Dylan Brooks and his first snap as a Jayhawk, he drives the right tackle back about 6 yards right into the quarterback where Jeremy Robinson was also waiting. So I think those two guys have you pretty excited about where this defensive front can go. And so I think you're just looking overall, this unit is going to have growing pains. And this is why I'm so excited for this game on Friday, is because this is where we're going to really see, right? This group looks more athletic. They look a lot more talented than what Kansas has had under Lance Leipold in the defensive front. But they're still young players. And so how are they going to be able to manage a physical Illinois offensive line that comes into Lawrence on Friday? So I think it's a group that I'm high on right now. I think over the course of time, it will bear out to be a very, very good defensive line. But obviously, we're not living in that world where we're talking this time next year or we're talking in December, right? We're talking here on September 5th, where they need this defensive line to be really good against Illinois. And I can't tell you if they're going to perform, but I really feel good about the long-term future of this group.
There have been some injury concerns. Obviously, Jalen Daniels at the forefront of those, him not playing against Missouri State. The outlook is a little more positive for him being able to go against Illinois. But of the injury concerns on this roster right now, which stand out to you as being potentially the most troublesome, either because it's at a position of need or it's a player who's really important, their presence is really important, or whether it's just an injury that looks like it might be a really long-term, long-haul kind of injury? Which ones are kind of standing out to you in that regard right now?
Yeah, so far, I think luckily for KU, it seems like not many of these guys are in that kind of, they're gone for, 6 to 8 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks. It doesn't seem like there are many of those guys. It's a lot more soft tissue stuff. I think, defensively, one of the more impactful injuries probably will be Tyrone Berryhill, right? He's got that hamstring issue that if you watch the second half, or really, if you watch the first half, right, he had a little drive where he blitzed the quarterback and you could just see that something happened with this hamstring because then he came out, then he was able to go back in later. and then came up limp again, right? That's not great because I think KU's depth at linebacker is pretty thin to begin with, and you lose Talon Berryhill for a game like this, and that's not a great sign. I think offensively, Luke Grimm, he's someone that I tabbed as someone that could lead KU in touchdowns if you're talking about players not named Devin Neal. I think he's really important to the offense and what they want to do, and so I think having him be healthy on Friday would be really important as well. I don't know about either one of those right now. It's kind of one of those where a lot of these you just have to see how it progresses over the course of the week. That's just kind of how soft tissue injuries go. There could be a really good 4 or 5 day stretch, and then all of a sudden one step back in one day, and you're looking at kind of going back to the drawing board. So we'll have to see this week, but I think those are the two big ones I'll have my eye on.
Michael, it will be KU versus Illinois coming up on Friday night. I know you got to talk with Jeremy Werner of 24/7 Sports, also my former boss. You got to talk with him a little bit for IlliniInquirer.com about this matchup from the KU perspective. But looking at the opponent, let's go behind enemy lines a little bit here. What about Illinois should be of the most concern for this KU team?
Yeah, I mean, first off, Jeremy's great.
Great.
And
dude.
second of all, I think you're looking at this defensive front. It's crazy. I mean, you're looking at this Illinois. A lot of teams in the Big 12 play a 3-man front, right? Like Iowa State, really not popular, but now Baylor and K-State also play it. But Illinois plays a 3-man front, and then they have 2 edge rushers on top of that who really do play like defensive ends. So they legitimately play a 5-man front. And, Johnny Newton's number 4 for Illinois is incredible, right? He's going to be on all the watch lists all season. He's going to be an All-American candidate throughout the course of the season as a defensive tackle / defensive end. Keith Randolph is another guy. He's wearing a tight end number 88 as a defensive tackle. I'm a big fan of weird numbers for defensive tackles, and that's one of them. So, I mean, those are really the 2 guys that KU fans really need to know, and they really need to be watching, because if those guys are getting in the backfield and you're hearing those names called, that's probably not a good sign. Whereas if this is the last time KU fans hear those names called, I think that bodes really, really well for fans on Friday night.
I totally understand where the perspective is coming from, and we heard this from the coaches this week during press conferences, and I think this is kind of the general assumption for this game. This isn't going to be a game that you can win with a lot of relying on explosive plays and the high-flying finesse kind of offense, because Illinois is physical and they are tough and they are well coached, and you've got to win on a down-to-down basis, and I understand it and I get it. But do you think it is also fair to say that some of those big play passing opportunities could be there, considering all that Illinois lost from its great defense a year ago? A top 10 pick in Devin Witherspoon at corner, one of the best safeties in the Big Ten in Sidney Brown, who's on to the NFL now. He is with Philadelphia. Their defensive coordinator is now Purdue's head coach. That is a lot to lose, among other things. I just feel like it might not be quite as impossible to have those big chunk passing plays as some folks have been making it seem.
Totally. And well, so funny you mention that, Brendan, because I think you look at, right, Illinois going into the season, what did people think were going to be the strengths, right? The front 7, the front 5. And then what happened against Toledo? Well, that front 5, 7, whatever you want to call it, kind of struggled. And they got pushed around by Toledo. And then what was the strength of Illinois when they played against Toledo? It was the secondary. So I agree with you. I would push back against, what the KU coaches have said, saying, oh, you got to execute. Yeah, you have to execute. But you would much rather take a 3-play, 75-yard touchdown drive than a 9-play, 60-yard drive that ends in a field goal. I just think generally, you take the explosive plays. Yeah, you can't rely on them, but I think you could say that about KU's offense last year, where I think they were very explosive, and it's about kind of being more consistent. So I think for this week, I'm fascinated to see how they attack this Illinois defense, because I think motion is going to be really important. I think the tight ends are going to be really important, and just where they try and attack. Because again, what we saw from Illinois on Saturday doesn't necessarily line up with what I think a lot of people thought were going to be their strengths heading into the season.
All right, final thing I've got for you, Michael. Let's play a little Know Your Enemy here. State symbols of Illinois. Do you know the Illinois state animal?
No, I have no idea.
It's a white-tailed deer. Can you guess the Illinois state fish?
Salmon.
Bluegill. Finally.
Oh, what?
A bluegill. They're terrible. They're little blue things. They eat your hooks. They're awful. Final one. Illinois state dance.
The Macarena.
The polka.
Yeah, polka. Great answer, Dan. No, it's the square dance.
Nah.
The square dance.
Nonsense.
Listen, outside of the part of Illinois I am from, it is a very rural state and a lot of rural influences on the majority of Illinois. Despite going 0 for 3 on our quiz, Michael Swain is the best in the business at covering the Kansas Jayhawks. Go to fog.net. The 50% off sale going on until 11 o'clock tonight. It is 100% worth it. Dan and I will tell you that till we're blue in the face. 100% worth it. Go check out Michael on Twitter as well, at mswain247. Michael, we appreciate the time as always, my friend. Thank you so much, and enjoy Friday night's ESPN2 tilt between KU and Illinois.
Definitely. Sounds great, guys. Talk to you again next week.
That's Michael Swain of fog.net. Absolutely awesome stuff covering the Kansas Jayhawks. I can give you more. State snack of Illinois.
Bratwurst.
Popcorn.
Yeah.
For real. That's a new one. I think that's their newest state symbol. I have a brain full of this nonsense.
Italian beef sandwiches.
It should be. Yeah, absolutely. Should be. Oh, my God. I'd kill for an Italian beef right now. That'll do it for the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. It's hard to get a good one here.
It's hard to get a good one anywhere that's not like
I know.
really dedicated to the craft.
Mr. Beef, open up a location somewhere in Northeast Kansas. Lines out the door every night, I promise you. Coming up in the final hour of the program today, we're going to hear from Andy Reid, what he had to say earlier today. We'll break down the rest of the college football weekend. There's a ton to get to, plus a bunch of 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll get to all that, your text, your YouTube comments, coming up in the last hour of 580 Sports Talk. on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero here with you, wrapping up the show today. Lots to get to in this final hour of the show. We'll get you some audio from Andy Reid. We'll break down what was the rest of a breakdown of a thrilling week one from around college football. And we'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up here in just a few moments. We're still taking your texts, 785-272-9429. And we will get to your YouTube comments. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us, where you can watch the live stream. Hop into the comment section as well. Join us and hang out throughout the rest of the show. Again, just go to youtube.com and search 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you're signed in so you can subscribe to the channel and so you can comment in the live rolling comment section as well. I was just looking during the break at some of the funniest results from the college football weekend. And again, we'll break it all down coming up in a little bit. Boston College spent $1 million to get Northern Illinois to come to Chestnut Hill, and they lost. $1 million to get embarrassed by directional Illinois at home. This isn't Jordan Lynch, Northern Illinois either.
No.
Or Chandler Harnish, Northern Illinois.
It's not Jerry Kill led
No.
Northern Illinois.
Or Dave Doran.
This is all you need to know about Boston College. They play Holy Cross this coming Saturday. Bill Connolly's SP Plus projections have Holy Cross a 4.5-point favorite. Boston College might be the worst Power 5 team in the country. It's them or it's Northwestern.
Oh, shoot. Damn, man, I watched most of that Northwestern game. I flew home on Southwest on Sunday morning from Minneapolis, and I was thrilled to find out that CBS is part of their watch live TV on our airplanes package.
Yes.
But, oh my God, they're putting this game on big CBS. One, that's stupid. Two, I get to watch it. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Look, Rutgers.
Not good themselves.
Not good. Fighting hard. The Shiano men fighting hard. Northwestern's impossible to watch. Like Ben Bryant at Cincinnati for several years, Lyons Township High School grad, was fine. A totally fine upper G5 quarterback who, when he transferred to a different P5, is probably like an okay Power 5 quarterback. Has good college living. Couldn't move the ball at all.
No.
Had a dude in his face all game. Throws were nowhere near receivers who may not have been running the right routes. I mean, it's abominable. This is pre-Randy Walker Northwestern right now, which even Randy Walker's Northwestern wasn't always great. I would put Northwestern below Boston College. Boston College at least put up 24 points.
Yeah. So for some reasons I'm not entirely sure I fathom myself, I watched a lot of the fourth quarter of that game, and Northern Illinois had a lot better athletes.
Yeah.
Like Northern Illinois was just running like perimeter stuff, like a lot of fly sweep and just get the back to the perimeter, get the wide receiver, get the motion guy to the perimeter with the ball. And Boston College was just ponderous in getting to the football.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't, it was bad. And then every time it looked like they might get a stop, they committed a pass interference penalty on the third and long. Like I think the same guy had like 3 pass interference penalties in the fourth quarter.
Ooh, that's tough.
It was appalling. Like, if Northwestern and Boston College played each other, they should televise that game on ESPN 13.
That'll be on local cable. That WCIU in Chicago, the U, that's where they're putting that game.
Put it on ESPN minus.
That's funny. That's really good. Yeah, tough weekend for a handful of programs around the country. We'll get to that again coming up this weekend. By the way, people forget that Nebraska also lost to Minnesota in hilarious fashion. Anyway, let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today, shall we? We've got a bunch of them to get to. A lot going on in the sports world today, and we are going to start with the big news from the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce's status is in doubt for Thursday night. That is the wording of Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. He hyperextended his knee during practice today. Andy Reid, who we'll hear from in a little bit, said that Kelce's status is uncertain we are now led to believe that he will be doubtful for the game coming up Thursday against the Lions. However, additionally, according to Rappaport, as well as his co-NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero, the injury is not believed to be long-term. They're going to wait for swelling in the knee to go down, and then they will go from there.
The most recent tweet I've seen on the subject is from Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer, who tweeted this 20 minutes ago. Tests show that all of Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce's ligaments are intact, though the knee hyperextension has caused swelling. Based on timing, probably unlikely he plays Thursday, but that'll all come down to how fast the swelling goes down, per sources.
Just put some ice on it, dude. You'll be fine.
Yeah, swelling can go down very fast sometimes. Like, again, what we talked about at the very beginning of the show, when we first knew that this had happened, and all we knew was hyperextended knee. The question was, is there ligament damage? Is there structural damage? Or is this a pain tolerance issue? If it's a pain tolerance issue, Travis Kelce's going to play Thursday night. I'll say it right now. I think he plays if all it is a pain tolerance issue. If there's structural damage or the concern about structural damage, then he's not going to play. And it sounds like it's more likely pain tolerance than it is structural damage. So I think I would feel better. I feel better about his chances of playing Thursday now than I did when we opened the show. Let me say that.
Okay, that's good. I would love for him to play even a little bit because that changes so much. I doubt that he ends up being able to go, but I hope he's able to. Obviously makes things a little bit easier for the Kansas City Chiefs, a lot easier for the Kansas City Chiefs if he is able to go. But that is your update on Travis Kelce. So no Chris Jones. Sounds like probably not going to have Travis Kelce, but we will indeed see come 90 minutes before the kickoff on Thursday. We'll know on our show whether or not he will be able to play because inactives will be due by 5:50, 90 minutes before kickoff. So we will know before we go off the air on Thursday whether or not Kelce will be able to go for sure. Let's also get to real quick. Dan just said something to me, and I don't know. I was talking, and I didn't hear you.
That's all right.
Sorry.
You want me to do a headline?
Yeah, why don't you do a headline?
Yeah, I'm going to do a headline. I'm going to do the AP Top 25 poll. That came out today, first of the season, the Week 2 AP Top 25 poll. And no change at the top. Georgia, still your number one team in the country. Bulldogs, not hugely convincing against UT Martin, but still one going away and did enough to maintain their number one ranking in the country. Michigan is ranked second, and following them, the rest of the top five is Alabama, Florida State, and Ohio State. Certainly Florida State, the best showing of those schools as they boat raced LSU on Sunday night. In fact, of the 63 first place votes, Georgia still with 58, Michigan with 2, Florida State with 3 first place votes in this week's top 25. USC and Penn State hold steady 6 and 7. Washington's up 2 spots to number 8. Tennessee and Notre Dame are each up 3 spots and round out the top 10, 9th and 10th respectively. Texas holds firm at number 11. Utah and Oregon are each up 2 spots to 12 and 13 after both teams won in their opening games. LSU, big faller, 9 spots down to 14th after their loss to Florida State. Kansas State is up a spot. They're into the top 15 this week at number 15 overall. Oregon State is up 2 spots to 16. North Carolina up 4 spots to 17. Oklahoma rises 2 spots to 18. Wisconsin holding at 19. Ole Miss is ranked 20th, up 2 spots from last week. The 2 newcomers to the poll this week, ranked 21st and 22nd. Duke into the poll at number 21 after they defeated Clemson last night. And Coach Prime is ranked 22nd. I'll do my bit later about why I'm going to refer to Colorado as Coach Prime largely throughout the season. And mostly it has to do with that's what Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt were calling them. And Joel Klatt is a Colorado alum. And it was Coach Prime this and Coach Prime that during the Colorado TCU game on Saturday. So Coach Prime ranked 22nd overall in the AP poll. Congrats to Coach Prime and only Coach Prime. All hail our new Coach Prime overlord.
Yeah. Gus wasn't actually watching the game within the last 3 or 4 minutes.
It was, I watched the entire broadcast. It was a bad broadcast. Camera angles were not good. Graphics guys were slow. There were a lot of like iffy camera shots, and Gus was like on a 10-second delay.
It was bad.
He also referred to a missed kick as being incomplete. Like, it was a bad day for Gus Johnson, and he doesn't have a lot of those. Like, hey, we all have off days at work. We all have bad days at our job. Gus Johnson had a bad day at his job on Saturday, and I say that as someone who loves Gus Johnson. He had a bad day on the job on Saturday. It was a lot of Coach Prime. It was Coach Prime overkill, but then they went out and won. So maybe that was deserved. Texas A&M and Tulane, 23rd and 24th, same as last week. Clemson, the big faller, down 16 spots to 25th.
We'll get to more Colorado in a little bit.
Yes, I do have more I actually want to say about Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, they're fascinating. There's no doubt about that. They are absolutely fascinating. Any qualms with the poll this week?
No, not really. I mean, I think Duke and Colorado certainly earned a mention in the top 25 this week for sure. Kansas State moving up a spot I'm good with. LSU dropping 9 spots. Absolutely. What the hell was that on Sunday night?
They did not look ready. They did not look ready for Florida State to be as good as they are.
Florida State's wide receivers, somebody I follow on Twitter said they looked like a Division II basketball team front court. Like,
that's pretty fun.
They're wide receivers, like just big and long and impressive. Florida State getting 3 first-place votes. Like, I sort of like that. I mean, nobody had a better win than them.
No,
in the country this week. Nobody had a better win than Florida State.
They're good. Like, they're not just they're good. No, they are legitimately good. They've got a 40-year-old quarterback. They've got super talented wide receivers. They've always got a good running back. They've got good athletes. I think Norvell's a really good coach. I don't know that they're going to be a playoff team, but if anyone out of the ACC is going to make it this year, it'll be Florida State, I think. That's a really dang good team. Really, really impressed with what they were able to do on Sunday night. Next headline for me, back to the NFL. We've got another star pass rusher who is not fully holding out, but he's not happy about his contract situation. Brian Burns, who is a stud for the Carolina Panthers, he has his status currently, according to reporting from NFL Network, currently in doubt for Sunday for the Panthers' season opener against the Atlanta Falcons, because currently the Panthers and Burns are not close to agreeing on a contract extension. Burns currently near the end of his rookie deal. Frank Reich, the coach of the Panthers, told reporters on Monday he wasn't certain whether Burns would hold out until he gets a new contract. Reich also said he has zero involvement in contract talks with Burns, who Reich hopes will be available to play this weekend in Atlanta. Burns declined to comment on the matter on Monday. Reich, meanwhile, struggled to formulate a response when asked if Burns was going to play with or without a new deal.
Man, please don't ever write, "I struggled to formulate a response." That's harsh.
Quote, "I don't know the answer to that question." It's the 5th year of his rookie contract. He's looking for a long-term deal.
Struggled to formulate. They made that man sound like he went up there and went full like Mitch McConnell and just didn't speak for like a minute and a half.
Elmer Fudd up there. Look, if you're Carolina, this is even easier than the Chris Jones situation. Seriously, like, Chris Jones is a great player. He's an elite player. You should get that deal done. This is different. Brian Burns is on his rookie deal.
Yeah, this is second contract, not third contract.
And I would put him in the conversation for one of the 5 best edge rushers in the league. No one's talked about him because Carolina's been pretty
Nobody has watched the Panthers play football in the last half decade. Nobody's seen a game.
He's awesome. Truly awesome. Get him a contract. This should not be hard.
Also, you're not paying the quarterback much right now. Quarterback's on a rookie deal. This is when you pay the complimentary pieces.
And your wide receiver course not all that expensive. Terrace Marshall's on a rookie deal. Adam Thielen didn't break the bank. You can pay for this guy. This should not pay him market value and move on. This should not be that hard. But he is currently holding out. Also, let's give you an update while we have you on Mike Evans and his contract situation. Evans is in the last year of a deal. He has told the Buccaneers that if they do not get a deal done by the 9th, by September 9th, he is not going to negotiate the rest of the year. That until the offseason, he is not going to further negotiate with the team. Now, according to some reports, including from Josina Anderson of CBS Sports, there is a contract offer out there, or at least a framework of a deal that would be amenable to Mike Evans. That it is something that they could work out. We are still yet to see if he is going to end up signing that. He is one of the most underrated players in the league to me. He has had 1,000 receiving yards every single year of his career. He's in like Julio, AJ Green territory, and he's healthy. He's a superstar player, and he's a little bit older because he's been in the league for a while, but I don't know. I don't know where that situation is going to end up going. He's one of the best players the Buccaneers have left. They also have no idea what their future is going to look like. Absolutely none. And I wouldn't blame them if they wanted to keep him and say, you're going to be the cornerstone of what will hopefully be a turnaround in the next year or two. And I would not be surprised if they did what Matt Verderame suggested and they end up moving him and they say, look, we got to tear it down.
He'd be ideal like mid-season trade candidate. I don't know what you're getting for him in week 6 or 7, but could you get a day 2 draft pick for Mike Evans? I bet you could, because again,
I think so.
He's a 1,000-yard receiver until he proves he's not, because that's literally what he's done every single year of his career. Next headline for me on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. The Kansas City Chiefs, they don't do tumults and turmoil. They don't do those things as a general rule, which is why the Chris Jones saga has stood out so much, because it's so contrary to what you generally see. The Chiefs don't normally negotiate publicly. They don't have a player holdout like this. It's just not been a common thing, this turmoil leading up to the start of the season. It's more of a Raiders thing. Well, the Raiders now, they've got a little bit of tumult and turmoil to deal with, courtesy one of their star edge rushers, Chandler Jones, who earlier today had himself a bit of a hissy fit on the social media. He was on Instagram earlier today in a series of posts that have since been deleted and include some fruity language that we're obviously not going to repeat here on the air. Essentially accused the Raiders of making him work out in a non-team facility. Jones, again, all of these have since been deleted, but they live on the internet, as things tend to do, and they live forever. Posted on a very lengthy Instagram story. Bleep it. I don't want to play for the Raiders if that's my HC or GM, my head coach or my general manager. I want Patrick Graham, who's currently the defensive coordinator of the Raiders. He would go on to say, they won't let me in the building, though, trying to provoke me, and then posted what appeared to be a text exchange between himself and some staff member, where he asks, how do you expect me to play this season? And I can't even get my GM on the phone. Should I call Josh, or will he not pick up either? Why y'all bring me to Vegas to play with me? And that is screenshotted within another text exchange with somebody you would think with the Raiders that reads, it's a shame that I'm a top athlete with 112 sacks in the NFL, and I have to go to a local gym to work out during the season for no apparent reason. This is wild to me. Josh, and you know it. You need to do what's right. Again, all of this has since been deleted by Chandler Jones, but people don't forget. This lives on the internet now.
Mm-hmm.
And none of it makes a whole lot of sense. Like, why would they be telling him he couldn't work out at a team facility? What would that be all about?
No idea. Teams don't speak about these kinds of things and those kind of accusations, and for good reason. And look, if we're being completely honest, if you know anything about the Jones family, incredible athletes, absolutely all-time great athletic family. Also, a mix of people who are nutcases or genuinely bad people. John Jones.
Jones, yeah.
Yeah, one of the best mixed martial artists ever. Also,
probably the best.
Like, his bloodstream is just pure anabolic steroids, and also a bad guy.
Also cocaine.
Loves cocaine. Big coke guy. Arthur Jones, their other brother. Didn't hear much about him. He wasn't in the league nearly as long as Chandler in the NFL. Chandler Jones, maybe not quite as much of a basket case as his brother, but yeah, they're a lot. And the Raiders are not going to tell us exactly what's going on. Now, would I be surprised if there was some sort of chicanery going on here that led to Chandler Jones having to work outside the facility? I'm sure it is possible, but you don't ever want this to be the most recent thing people think of your team for.
No.
I wouldn't want to play with them. I told you earlier, that if I found out my coach was about to be Josh McDaniels, then I'm leaving the Raiders and I'm going to play for the Vegas Vipers of the XFL. Like, I would not play for this dude. He is a clown. He has always been a clown. And I'm not surprised we have more clown-like activity from a team that is as terribly run as the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, that's kind of what you expect. Kind of been their brand over the years.
Jeez. By the way, final thoughts. How much of the U.S. Open have you been paying attention to?
The tennis?
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of it here and there. I see Coco Gauff making a run.
That's right. Coco Gauff, the American, still teenager, I believe. She's
19
still 19
years old, yeah.
She is on to the U.S. Open semifinals after a straight sets win today. The American men showing out in Flushing Meadows. 3 American men in the quarterfinals. One of them, Taylor Fritz, lost today. He's a top 10 seed. He's
he
number
lost
9
to
seed.
Novak Djokovic.
Which is fine.
So,
yeah, that's all right. Straight set loss for him. Competitive, but straight set loss.
Hey, 2 of them are playing each other, so we're guaranteed one in the semis.
That's right. It will be Francis Tiafoe and Ben Shelton. I did not know of Ben Shelton until this weekend. I will be honest with you.
Unseeded player. He's made a great run. Goff, first American teen to make the U.S. Open semi since Serena Williams. Anytime you're the first since Serena to do something, it's probably pretty impressive.
Yeah, that means you're pretty dang special. Any other headlines for you today?
No, I think we'll wrap it there.
Let's take a time out then. That is it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, we're going to hear from a couple of Kansas City Chiefs today. Andy Reid, Creed Humphrey, they spoke, among others. We'll hear from them. Plus, we got more college football talk coming up later this hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, last half hour of the show on a Tuesday afternoon. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with us. Andy Reid was long for the podium today. Only had a few things to say, including the big news about Travis Kelce. But let's hear from Big Red and what the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs delivered to us on what would normally be a Friday of a game a week. Your Tuesday is a Friday for the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's hear what Big Red had to say earlier today.
course, injuries. Kels hyperextended his knee today, so we'll just see how he does going forward. Good day of practice before this challenge of playing the Lions. I think a good football team. You guys had a good week. They're looking at it now. Yeah, I think those guys had a good week.
Guys on your list.
I'll tell you what, I'll give them tomorrow or game day. And I guess everybody's good to go. We'll see the action.
Next man out.
Sure. Yeah, the next guy stepped in. That's what's good. No progress. Yeah, no progress.
Coach, this would be, I mean, Isaiah's played in the preseason, but this is going to be, real game action. Are you pretty confident that he's up to the speed? Because there's no holding him back. He likes to be the ball.
Sure. Yeah. Again, if he's up, he's playing. So, be ready.
Would there be an emotional value to just having a resolution with Chris?
We're focused in on the guys that are here playing the Lions and getting ready to play the Lions. That's where I'm at. If you're not there, you're not there. Unfortunately, that's the name of this game. You can't spend time. You got to toss your time on the team that you're playing. So that's where we're at.
Did you see what happened with Kelsey?
Yeah, it was right in front of me. Hyperextended his knee.
Anything else?
Okay, good.
Are we done?
Andy Reid is in mid-season form already. He has no time for your Chris Jones comments. He has no time for your any of this nonsense.
No.
Do you think he thinks about it at all? Like, do you think this is not a front necessarily? And I'm sure that the vast majority of his attention is on the guys in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think there's any of him that is sort of feeling a little peeved about this, or is it totally compartmentalized?
I think that there was a time for that. There was a time for frustration, and there was a time for, being disappointed that a player of his caliber is choosing not to be with the team. And I think that time for Andy Reid passes pretty quickly. And I think he's able to move on to the next thing, the next task, and the thing in front of him, which is prepare for the Lions. Get the 53 guys who he's got ready to play the Detroit Lions. And so I don't think that it's something that's just stuck in his craw all week long.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had his moment to feel what he's got to feel about it. And then it's okay. He's not here. Let's figure out how to win without him.
I do wonder, we've talked a lot about what the emotions of the guys in the locker room are like. Do you think resentment sinks in once Jones does come back? Or is it simply just, hey, this is business? And maybe we're not buddy-buddy like we once were, but it's business and you're here. We've got business is better when you're here. Do you think that's probably how it feels?
Nah, I think so. It's business decision. He made the decision he made. We're not maybe not thrilled with it, but now that he's here, we got to win with him.
I will say it is extremely funny that he is doing Chris Jones an ad with Travis Kelce.
Yes,
for
the DirecTV ads, yes.
Which also features Uncle Jack from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Did you notice that?
I did not notice
He
that.
is the guy at the end who doesn't know how to use the remote. It's Uncle Jack from It's Always Sunny. Before we get to our next break, let's hear from Creed Humphrey, the starting center for the Chiefs, what he had to say today.
Home opener, as defending champs, you get to go first at home. Can you just talk about that kind of excitement for the new season?
Yeah, it's obviously very exciting, kicking off the season, first game, home game. There can be a lot of distractions for this game. So really our focus is just on the game. That's our sole focus right now is just preparing to go out there and play the way we play football.
You didn't let anybody touch Patrick in the preseason. What are you expecting from the Lions with Hutchinson? And, they're, from what you've seen on tape, is that going to be, are you confident in the way the offensive line is playing that you can continue that protection for Patrick?
Yeah, they have a very talented front. They present a really good challenge for us. So they've got a ton of talented players in that front seven. They do some good things. So it's definitely a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for us for sure. And but we're excited about it. It's kind of why we play this game is the challenging parts of it. So yeah, we're excited.
Now that you're in a couple of years as a pro, what are some of your strategies on such a big game like Thursday night to kind of just stay in the moment, stay calm?
Yeah, I just, try not to think of it as, being such a big game. I think of it as just the next game. That's, our focus. That's our task. And taking it play by play, that's the way I think of it.
When you look back at the preseason and training camp as far as having 2 new tackles, just where do you feel like you guys started and where are you guys now heading into the
Yeah, those guys have both, since OTAs, have improved a ton. We've gotten a ton of chemistry with them now, a ton of snaps under our belts with them so far. And it's been really good. Those are 2 really talented players, 2 guys that have the same mindset as the rest of the line room. So, we're really excited to have them. They've fit in really well with our group, and it's been great.
Anything else?
So that is Creed Humphrey, the starting center for the Kansas City Chiefs, speaking earlier on this afternoon as well. It's an interesting matchup against this Lions front. I was joking earlier that they don't have a lot of edge depth. They've got an okay interior. I think Ali McNeil is a player who I really liked coming out of college when he was at North Carolina State. He's found a nice little niche for them. And Aiden Hutchinson was great last year.
Yes.
For a second overall pick, probably should have been the first overall pick. Ends up with Detroit. Really dang good rookie year. So there's some highs, some mid, and some lows with this group. So it'll be a test. If you can shut down Hutchinson, you're probably going to end up being just fine. So not the most difficult matchup that you're going to get this year if you are the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, but not the hardest, not the easiest, somewhere in the middle for sure. Let's get to a break here on 580 Sports Talk. A lot happened in this college football weekend, Big 12 and elsewhere. We'll break it all down coming up after this right here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan with you. It's 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. 2 days away from the start of the NFL season. A somewhat depleted Chiefs team against the Lions coming up on Thursday night, but we had a full week 1 slate for college football this past weekend. Do you remember when KU for a few different years in a row, I think, or at least a couple different times, had a week 1 bye?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, that was a Charlie Weiss special. God, a program I love so much was in the toilet for so long. I'm glad it is not anymore, though. Good win for KU in week 1. Great win for K-State in week 1 as well. Outside of, well, let's start here. Before we get into some other overall thoughts from the week, I'll leave the floor open to you to start off the Colorado topic here. Because while they're not yet a Big 12 member, they will be shortly, but while they're not yet a Big 12 member, they were, I think, easily the most fascinating team from week 1. I think a lot of the reaction to their win over TCU has been overblown, while also believing that for a team that was a 3-touchdown underdog to win on the road against a team that played for a national title last year, even if they look much different this year, is impressive and should be praised, if maybe not as much as they are getting the praise. So I will leave it open to you because I know you have a lot of thoughts about the flagship university from your home state.
You know, the people on the halftime, post-game, talking head shows about this don't have the right vocabulary to talk about what Colorado did because it's so unprecedented. There was a lot of, this team won 1 game last year. They won 1 game. They were the worst Power 5 team in the country last year. That Laundry won 1 game last year. What, I got 5 guys back? Some insignificant number of guys now.
10, something like that.
Yeah, now, like 1 role player, right? Like Trevor Woods, he had an interception in the end zone. He went one of the 2 picks for Colorado. He was the 1 guy, I think, who was back, who played like any significant amount for Colorado last year. It's not a lot back, is what I'm saying. Like what we have here is the closest thing we're ever going to see to the NCAA create a school feature, where you just get to make your own thing and drop it into whatever conference you want to drop it in. And, oh, yeah, if you do that, you're probably making a player that's as good as Travis Hunter, because that's the ultimate create a player move, to play 129 snaps and be the best player on offense and the best player on defense for your team and be that impactful in a game like that. It's like to talk about this Colorado team in the context of last year's Colorado team, they have nothing to do with each other. The only thing they have in common is a home stadium, basically, like a home address.
And a brand, yeah.
Yeah,
and a name and a team name, not even a brand.
That's all you've got.
Yeah.
Basically, this team is an expansion team. It's like the Vegas Golden Knights or the Seattle Kraken. That's what we're working with here with Colorado. And it's so unprecedented that we just don't maybe have the right vocabulary to talk about it. Now, when this all happened, when Deion Sanders was hired to be the head coach at Colorado, I was critical of it because I didn't think that was the direction for Colorado to take. I felt like Colorado's been so down for so long as a football program that my thought was they just haven't had the right coach to come in and lay a foundation, like we're seeing Lance Leipold do at Kansas now. Lay that foundation for improvement, for sustainability. That is not what you were getting with the Deion Sanders experience. There is no foundation being laid here. This is a rock and roll tour bus that's pulling into your town, and the star power coming out of that tour bus is robust. You don't know how long that's going to hang around, and once it's done, you don't know what it's going to look like, what's going to be left behind that's going to be sustainable at all. This is not a hire you make to lay a foundation. This is a hire you make to give your program over to the subsidiary that is Coach Prime Enterprises. But holy cow, what a show. I mean,
yeah,
the thing about the talent level that Deion has brought to Colorado, we underestimated it severely. I think that whatever you felt about how Colorado was going to be this year, and there's nobody out there saying, oh, this is a national championship team, this is a Pac-12 contender. There were a lot of people who maybe were cautiously optimistic. I was on the more bearish side. I looked at the schedule, we both did, and we thought, maybe 3 wins is about right, maybe 4. Clearly, this was not enough regard given to the talents and abilities of 3 guys in particular. Shader Sanders, the quarterback, Dylan Edwards, the true freshman out of Derby, who was unstoppable.
I saw one person I know, a K-State fan, put on Twitter, watching Dylan Edwards actually be good is a real kick in the nads. Like, damn it, I was really hoping he wasn't going to be this good, because he looks like the real deal.
Well, one thing is readily apparent. You can't cover him with a linebacker.
Nope.
You put a linebacker on him in pass coverage, forget about it. Cancel Christmas. That kid is too fast for that. And Travis Hunter being the third guy, which I don't know how we all ended up underrating the consensus #1 recruit in the country from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't see it, right? Like, we weren't watching Jackson State games. We weren't grinding that tape. A lot of us missed that. So those three guys are legitimate, like capital S special. And you might even add Jimmy Horn Jr. to that too, because he was awesome. He had over 100 yards receiving as well. One of 4 guys to accomplish that feat for Colorado in that win over TCU. Like, they're going to have the best player on the field more times than not. And they're going to have the best quarterback on the field a lot more often than we had anticipated. So that kind of rips the ceiling off a little bit, at least the ceiling we thought existed for this Colorado team. And I can wring my hands all I want about what the Deion Sanders experience is. All that talk he did coming into this, all the I, me, I'm coming, I'm bringing my luggage, I'm this, I'm that, the stuff that I think forgivably, understandably rubs people, including myself, the wrong way. We can wring our hands all we want to do about that. But you know who's not wringing their hands? Colorado fans who've been dying for a team that's relevant, that's interesting, that's fun, that plays watchable football. And they are going to be watchable. I don't know what their win total is going to be. I don't know where they land. They feel a little bit like last year's Kansas to me, where the offense is going to put on a show every week and the defense is going to be a little iffy. There are going to be a lot of high-scoring games, and there's a lot of variance when you get into those high-scoring games. I don't know what it's going to look like in the end, but there's no denying that those guys in Sean Lewis's offense are going to be spectacular. So maybe me, as a non-Colorado fan, it's time for me to shut the hell up and enjoy this show, because that's what this is going to be. And you can all follow my lead or not, but that's what I intend to do with this Colorado thing. I'm less worried about Coach Prime and everything that comes with that, the negatives that come with that, because there are real negatives, I think, that do come with that. I'm not worried about those anymore. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the show, because Colorado football hasn't been a show in a really long time, but they are going to be maybe not just a show, they might be the show in college football this year.
Yeah, Sean Lewis is a star, and Colorado's lucky they got him from a head coaching job to an offensive coordinator spot. He's a star, and with that kind of talent in his offense, they're going to put up numbers this year. The reason I am hesitant to go all in on this team is because a lot of the factors that went into that game against TCU feel unsustainable. Like, Shedeur Sanders is not going to throw for 500 yards a game. And they needed every single yard of offense they got because they gave up dang near 600
The
yards.
thing that they're not going to be able to do is play Travis Hunter 130 snaps. Like, that's the biggest thing.
That's because freakish, clearly. Yes. But if you do that every week, you know what you're going to get? Hurt sooner rather than later. Because, like, week 4, okay, you got Oregon. You can't do that with a team like Oregon. You just cannot do it because you're going to get ground into dust. Now, maybe there are some weeks where he is a primarily defensive guy. Maybe there's some weeks where he's a primary offense. Like USC, okay? There's going to be 400 snaps in that game when they play USC. You might have to play him more defensively because it's more important that you slow down Caleb Williams to the best of your ability than it is to have 4 touchdown catches, because those can go to Jimmy Horn or they can go to any number of guys on that roster. So you're going to have to find a way to limit those snaps at some point. Now, the thing that does benefit Colorado here, they play Nebraska at home this week. Nebraska did not exactly look good in week 1.
They're not going to have to play Travis Hunter on defense if they don't want. Who are they locking down?
No, nobody, because they don't have any dudes.
Yes, they can manage his snaps much more easily this week and next week against a Colorado State team that will be pretty overmatched.
They're bad. They're bad.
But yeah, you're going to get into Pac-12 play and you're going to have to make some hard decisions. And 130, that's so many snaps.
Yeah. Like, the end of their season is stack. You want to make the Kansas comparison? Stack wins now, because the end of their season, starting from, Stanford's got a quarterback too, but after their bye week in the middle of October, they end the year at UCLA, home for Oregon State, which looks like a problem, home for Arizona, probably winnable, at Washington State, at Utah. That is gruesome. And they have Oregon State and USC at the, or I'm sorry, Oregon and USC at the start of their schedule.
And we'll see how their depth holds up. We'll see how they hold up in the trenches. I think any concern you had about the football for the defensive side, for playing in the trenches, I think that all holds after 1 week. And it could very much cap what this team is capable of doing. But you know what else they're capable of doing? What we saw on Saturday. And what that was the most entertaining game of the opening weekend and a whole hell of a lot of fun. And so I'm here for the fun now with this Dion thing. I'm here for the fun.
Totally fair. Real quick, before we get out of here, give me your best performance ignoring this game or the KU or K-State games.
Okay.
Best performance and worst performance of the weekend.
Best performance, man, Florida State was really good up front defensively. They were all over Jane Daniels, made him make a lot of mistakes, and they paved LSU. I mean, that ended up being a wipeout. That was really, really impressive. The best win any team had this weekend. Worst performance? Baylor. What the hell was that? What in the world happened? And like, I'm not a Blake Shapen guy, but if you look at the game grades for quarterbacks, Blake Shapen graded out like as good as any great game that CJ Stroud played last year at Ohio State. Like his game grade was off the charts. They can't block. They got no playmakers. They got boat raced by Texas State, and now Shapen's out 2 to 3 weeks. Like, you sure about that extension we gave Dave Aranda 2 years ago? Because that's kind of looking funny in the light. It was not a great week, truth be told, for the Big 12 Conference. TCU looks like they've taken a major step back. I'm not in on Chandler Morris. I'm sorry. He looked so shook on that final drive.
Clueless.
Texas Tech goes and loses to Wyoming. That was kind of a funky game. They missed 3 field goals. Probably should have won in regulation, but still, if you're a top 25 team, you should be able to go and beat Wyoming at Wyoming. But Baylor, boy, that's the biggest head scratcher. I don't know what the heck that was, but that was gross.
Texas State has been an FBS team since 2012. How many bowl games have they been to?
I can't remember they've been to any.
None. They've been to 0.
Yeah.
They've had one winning season in FBS since 2012. One winning season. They didn't qualify for a bowl game that year. They were 7-5. They didn't have the qualifications to make a bowl. Now, I like their coach, G.J. Kinney, but you can't lose to Texas State.
They are Group of 5 Colorado. They've got 50 plus transfers into that program, and that's what it looked like week 1 for them. Like, it's not exaggerating the case to say that what Colorado and Texas State did over the weekend, pretty unprecedented, but also could very much be precedent setting moving forward.
Also, real quick, I'm with you. Baylor, worst performance of the weekend, easily. You cannot lose to Texas State by multiple scores. Best performance, Washington. Michael Penix and that offense are going to put up so many points and so many 40-yard touchdowns this year.
The big Penix energy joke doesn't work as well spoken aloud as it does in print, but no, man, he rules.
He's awesome.
That looks like it's going to be a really fun team to watch. There's going to be so much fun football being played in a dying conference this year.
Which is really sad. Really, really sad. We've got to get to one final break. Final words next on 580 Sports Talk. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk, Dan. Final word.
You got to be thrilled, I think, if you're a KU or a K-State fan with how your team came out of the gates in week 1 of the college football season. K-State looks every bit the part of a Big 12 title contender and a top 15 team in the country. The offense is as advertised. The front seven was as advertised. KU played with their food a little bit, but pulled away late, showed off the running game, showed a little pop in the front four that they're going to need to show when the games get a little more serious moving forward. All in all, great starts for the Sunflower State's Big 12 schools in week 1.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't be at least encouraged. If for no other reason than they both took care of business. You win by 31, you win by 45. That's now 4 of the last 5 years K-State has had a 40-plus point win. That's pretty darn impressive for K-State. I think the COVID year was the only one where they didn't have one like that. But no, great start there. Awesome weekend around college football. We didn't even talk about Wyoming beating Texas Tech. That was awesome. We didn't spend nearly enough time making fun of Dabo Sweeney today. That was awesome last night. Just a fantastic first weekend of college football from around the country. Coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk, Tim Fitzgerald is going to join us. We'll get you some more thoughts on the Chiefs and what they will do if they likely don't have Travis Kelce for their game coming up on Thursday night, and much more. Don't forget to go subscribe to us on YouTube. Search 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Subscribe. Check out the video archive of all of our shows, including today. Check out the podcast at 580wibw.com as well. We're back tomorrow from 2 until 6. For Jake LeBon, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This is 580 Sports Talk.